Alrighty, folks, we are back, baby. Episode number 13 of Live in 5. I am joined, as always, by my co host, Gage Ausmus, presented by Butter Golf and Mini Movers. Butter Golf is the official lifestyle and clothing apparel brand of Live in 5. Folks, for whatever you need golf wise, lifestyle, we have it all. We are entering the holiday season, so we just ran our Black Friday sale. We still have those Forks hats, a couple left in white. If you're looking, those will be available at the Sioux shop, I believe, in about a week here. So, again, that is Butter Golf and Mini Movers. We are brought to you by over here at Live in 5. But, Azo, I guess, well, the elephant in the room, brother. Let's just address it. The boys, well, we're free agents over here, baby. We're unrestricted. It's like July 1st, but it's happening at the end of November. Folks, we won't get into too much detail, but Ozzy, right now, the boys here, we're running just us two, and we'll touch on that a little bit later. But free agents, brother, it's kind of what you're feeling.
Free agents, it is a good feeling. I'll touch on it a little bit because those guys gave me a little bit for has-beens, and I respect 10K. I love what they do. I love all those guys over there, and especially Mace, who helped us out do this podcast, the first 12 episodes for sure, and then all of has-beens for me there. Nothing but love for those guys. 10K, folks, is a Minnesota-based brand, and Jordan and I kind of decided Live in 5 is more of a not so centered around Minnesota sports, which is what 10K is. So we didn't really align with their brand and their vision to where they're going. So it wasn't by any means a nasty breakup or anything. It was kind of a mutual parting of ways there, if you will. And obviously Mace is a big part of 10K, so he's going with them, and we want to thank Mace for everything he did for us, and obviously 10K for backing us and allowing us to use all their stuff. So nothing but love for them. But yeah, free agents, baby, it's exciting. It's exciting when you're a free agent in hockey, when you're out there on the open market, single back, and an unrestricted free agent being single. It's always exciting being a free agent, man. There's new beginnings, new opportunity. I'm excited, man.
100%. And like you touched on, I was new to the show here, only being about 12 episodes deep, but from the guys at 10K, they always helped us out, Ozzy, and especially Mace, Jack Mason, our producer, Jackie Furta. Tip the cap, pour one out to him because he was doing timeless work for us, basically for free 99 on his own dime, on his own time. So nothing but love and respect for Mace. But Ozzy, it is what it is, and the show goes on over here at Live in 5. So, like you said, anytime you're hitting the open market, hey, we're looking for teams, we're looking for sponsors, we're looking for everything over here at Live in 5. We're talking missionary, me on top of her, on top of you, shit. So, Ozzy, we will be in the hunt. We'll be okay. And just wanted to get into the weekend snap like we normally do over here at Live in 5, brother. How was the weekend? How was the Turkey Day special? Where'd you spend it? I believe you were in Minneapolis. Did you go over to the roommate or the +1 side of things, or did you do a little local turkey at your place?
Yeah, I went over to the roommate's place and had Thanksgiving with her parents. We actually went out to a restaurant since it was just us four. It doesn't really make sense anymore to make a big Thanksgiving dinner. With only four people there. My parents were invited. My dad went up to visit his parents. My mom's out in Kelowna watching Trey play hockey up there, so they were out of the picture, and that's what we did. And it was great. I like the smaller Thanksgiving. Sometimes when you're in front of 10, 15 family members, it gets a little outrageous. It gets a little overwhelming. They can get a little long, so that was nice there. And then obviously on the weekend, got to pop over to the old Mariucci and watch the Gophers take on Michigan State. That was an interesting one. I'm not used to seeing Michigan State be a decent hockey team. Every time I've seen them in the last how many years, they've just kind of been mediocre, and they got a good squad this year, so that was cool to see.
Yeah, and before we get to our boots on the ground segment in terms of college hockey, I guess I'll give a rundown a little bit of my Turkey Day spent on the couch of my parents' apartment. Ozzy, the house that we grew up in, they sold that, I would say, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years ago now.
How sad is that? Do you
Oh,
miss it? It's
yes,
terrible.
man. I mean, the shakers we had at this place, dude, they had a pool in the back. It had the hot tub in case you needed a little rub down from a girl your senior year. I mean, at a hockey room where we could host parties, and that was like a room just off or below the garage that was like soundproof. I mean, it was just a place to be if you're the kid growing up in Verona, Wisconsin. So once we lost that place, I forget what year it was. It might have been my sophomore or junior year of college as I was kind of finishing it up at UND, and they downsized to a condo kind of closer to downtown Madison, and then ended up selling that place because my folks are actually going to be relocating down here to the desert full time. They got a spot that's being built right now. So once my
Unreal.
mom retires here in June or July, the Schmaltz clan will all be down here. But yeah, man, it's just sad. So we were chilling in an apartment, a 2-bedroom, humble beginnings, as I'd say, or humble endings to their time in Madison. It's just off the square, which is a cool spot off the Capitol. And anyways, we were just hanging out there, me, my sis, my parents. My mom cooked up a nice little turkey day spread led by a honey baked ham. Fuck, man, I think I filled my barrel with like 6,500 calories. It's just insane the amount of food you eat on turkey
It's
day. And I
nuts.
wasn't even boozing. And I woke up the next day and I thought I was on like day 7 of a bender. It was crazy.
It's
But
worse than if you were that hangover, that food hangover. It's worse than if you actually went on a bender.
oh, it's horrible. So we did that, and then I was boots on the ground the following day, or I think 2 days later, kind of just kicked it with the fam, nice and easy. But before we get to boots on the ground, do you follow Kid Rock on Instagram? I wanted to just bring this up quick because he is such a beauty. You got to pull up his Instagram here, Ozzy. And after the Turkey Day special is the Black Friday, obviously for folks looking to shop, and Kid Rock just kills me, man. I mean, the guy, like he said, he's uncancelable. I just think he's so funny. So he's running this special for his Rock the Country tour, which features him, Jason Aldean, Miranda Lambert, Hank Williams Jr., Leonard Skinner, and a few others. And his caption was just so goddamn funny. So he's like, Black Friday is here. You could go to Target and get yourself a great deal on a women's swimsuit with a penis pouch, or you could buy tickets to the most patriotic music gathering in the world. It's just like, oh my God. The Detroit Cowboy kills me.
It's
I'm a
unreal.
big fan of Kid Rock. I know you are too, but I just think like I'm waking up on Friday, I'm reading that post. I'm like, oh my God, the kid did it again, baby.
He did. He always pulls through. That guy is such a legend, man. He's my favorite concert I've ever been to. He's one of my favorite humans on earth. He's just real, and he is, like you said, he's one of the only guys on earth I feel is uncancelable. And he says it too. He's like, I'm uncancelable. You can't
he's
cancel
just
me. It's so
he's so
nails.
nails, but yeah, so that was fun. Ended up doing a couple dinners. It's always good to get home, but my sister ended up pulling a $500 pull tab at a local establishment, Toby. So she went and had herself a night, Ozzy. That was the same night. That was Friday. So luck on the Schmaltz side was on our side. But let's get into boots on the ground here, brother. Our segment on college hockey. We try to watch a little bit or even, get to a game every now and then. So you were at Mariucci. You were watching, obviously, the Gophers take on the visiting Michigan State Spartans. And historically, over the last decade, the Spartans have just been dog shit. I mean, they finally got a coach in there, in Adam Nightingale, a guy that was in Detroit before as a video coach. But what did you see in that game? I believe it was a Friday-Sunday series. So is Michigan State, like, are they decent now? Or are they a team that's going to be in the tournament come March? Or is this a team that had just a hot start and they're kind of fading? What did you see from that game in the Big Ten?
Yeah, no, I honestly thought like the Gophers outplayed them Friday a little bit, but Michigan State hung in there. They were down the whole game. They'd go down a goal, tie it, go down a goal, tie it, go down 2 goals, come back and tie it. They were relentless. They kept coming back, and the Mariucci's a tough building to play in, man. I don't know how many times you stepped on that ice out in the Mariucci, but it's intimidating, and the crowd's loud, and those Minnesota guys, they play hard. They're skilled, they're talented. They play a tough game on that big sheet. It's not as big anymore. But no, Michigan State, I thought they looked good. They're definitely going to be in the tournament for sure. Obviously, Minnesota's down a little bit from last year, but I'm comparing that team this year to their team last year, and you can't really compare a college team to the team they had last year. That's one of the teams that only comes around once every decade or so. So It'll be interesting to see where they finish. The Big Ten is going to be a tight race. I don't know what's going to happen in that league.
For sure. And give me one player for the folks listening on either side. Obviously you got the big names in Snuggerud and some of these guys on Minnesota, but how about one player on Sparty that you're like, man, this guy might be able to play in the National League, or he's a good prospect.
Yeah, no, they had they've got this kid Isaac Howard. That's kind of why I wanted to go to the game. So the kid goes to Duluth last year, and he doesn't have too good of a season. He's a first round pick. He's a guy that wore the White Lightning suit to the draft. I thought that was legendary. Watching him walk up there, you don't really see too many, Minnesota guys walking up on the draft stage with a nice flashy suit. So that was good to see him pulling through for Minnesota there, but. He transferred to Michigan State. Didn't have too good of a season with Duluth last year, so I was interested to see how he looked out there. And this guy's silky, man. He can skate. He's smooth out there. He sees the ice well. He's a good player, man. I think if he keeps developing, and I think he's over a point per game this year, so he's obviously producing. But no, yeah, I mean, and then on the Minnesota side. I didn't really know who to watch, but who I did like when I watched on Friday was the Pitlick kid. And those Pitlicks, all of them, they all
Is this the goddamn Brady bunch?
Yeah, and they all grow up. It seems like they all grow up. It seems like just stick handling in their sleep. Like this guy's got mitts. It's disgusting. I mean, they're so dirty. He was a good player out there. I mean, he's a small body. I mean, he might be smaller than Clayton Keller, and I don't know if he has enough skill to be Clayton Keller, but he's up there, man. He's fun to watch, especially in college. So those are the two guys I kind of noticed on the ice.
For sure. And Ozzy, I was boots on the ground the following night at the Kohl Center. And do you remember, like back in the day, especially when I used to go watch games in the early to mid 2000s, this place would be stuffed. There'd be 16,000 people. On an off night, there might be 12 to 13, 12 and a hook, but it was predominantly packed. And I know it's Thanksgiving weekend, but just over the years, Wisco has just lost the steam of the crowd, brother. It's weird, and I know they're on the up and up, which I love, but do you remember how packed that building used to be, and even just seeing highlights out of that? I mean, I was talking with my dad, like, this place used to be the hardest place to play in college.
Yeah.
It was like an NHL arena.
It is. It's the size of an NHL arena, and they used to stuff it, like you said. And it used to
Do you remember going there our junior year, my junior year, your sophomore year? It was stuffed.
It was insane. It was scary.
And they weren't any good.
No, and they weren't. And back then, when they did have fans, coming to that rink, their basketball and football team were good.
Yes.
So they're competing with them, and now it's like I don't really hear much about Wisconsin football and basketball anymore. So you'd think they'd have a little more buzz with the hockey team. I know they were down last year, but yeah, I mean, it'd be nice to see them. I mean, get some fans back in the stands. I know the Kohl Center was rocking. I think they need to, level down a little bit, maybe get a 7,000, seat stadium or arena for those guys. Because I just don't think they're going to sell out that. That Kohl Center was built for basketball, which obviously basketball can get, that many people there. But with hockey, I just don't see them filling that place anymore. I don't know why.
Yeah, it's weird. I mean, it's a lot to fill, and especially, with the team being a little bit down. But they had an okay crowd with no students being there. All things considered, I mean, they probably had 7,000. I would say that's kind of what my estimation was, even for a team they were playing Alaska. So who knows?
Yeah.
Hastings got that thing on the rise, right? They're playing at the Seawolves. I mean, we're talking a throwaway game up in fucking Rochester, even though they lost on Friday night. Saturday, there was a decent crowd, but one player I wanted to mention, I tweeted about this kid as I was sitting in section 226, row F. Ben Dexheimer. He's a right shot, undersized defenseman. He's a sophomore, 11 points in 14 games. I think he's a borderline NHL prospect. And to me, he moved really well. He's a guy that's undersized. He doesn't have like the moxie or the defensive game as like a Faber. But to me, he's a guy that could play a couple more years, be around a point per game, especially as as he gets into being an older guy and an upperclassman, a junior and senior. So that's one guy I wanted to watch on. And now I want to give one shout out to Nate Lapointe. He is Derek LaPointe's brother who played at UND for folks listening.
No way.
He is the equipment manager for the Badgers, just surpassed or hit 500 games for as a college hockey equipment manager. He's a guy that was a student trainer at UND. He's actually a guy that fucking sharpened my skates, Ozzy, when I was playing in the jungle in Chicago. I would rip my blades up north because my guy in Chicago with the Wolves, I mean, he might as well have been working at
Didn't trust him.
He was just a butcher, dude.
Some of those guys are terrible at sharpening the blades. It's like, what are you doing, buddy?
So I would bring my blades up to Pointer. He'd get them done crispy rice, whatever I was using. I was like 5/8 or 7/8. I can't remember what I would use, but Pointer was always dialed. So I wanted to give him a shout out. Good dude from Eau Claire, Wisconsin. And the last thing I want to touch on in college hockey here, Ozzy, before we get into our NHL talk, the Nodak jerseys for Nodak. I mean, come on. These things are crispy. Why aren't they the number one jerseys instead of the Fighting Hawks bullshit or the UND, the standard logo they're using right now, just the script? Like these Nodaks coming across, they're unbelievable. And I wanted to just give one shout out again to Dane Montgomery, scored his first goal for the Sioux at the Ralph. But Ozzy, just touch on both those things in terms of why aren't we using these Nodak jerseys more and why aren't they regulars? Because those whites, dude, they were so butter.
Man, those are better than any jersey I ever wore at North Dakota by far. And yeah, I mean, I don't want Bubs to take a ricochet shot here, but what are they doing? Can they not wear these things every game? And even the darks, wear the darks too. Like, we don't need the University of North Dakota on the front of the jersey. It's just too much to read. It's like, let's keep the Nodak right there. And that green paired with that white, it's the best jersey in college hockey, I think. I mean, obviously I'm biased, but it's a clean look. It's unbelievable. And you mentioned Dane Montgomery scores his first goal. Unbelievable for the kid. He's been injured for his first 2-3 years or whatever, finally gets in a game, scores a goal. But remember when we were at the series, they're playing the Gophers, we watched Aces skate before, and Daner was one of the guys on the ice, and he was skating, doing some drills with another guy, and we were watching him. We're like, fuck, his boots look pretty good. He looks pretty good out there. Yeah, let's get this guy some ice time. Yeah.
He was looking good, especially those tight turns he was doing. The mitts were following the hands. Like, he looked like he was ready to play.
Yeah.
And it's cool that he got rewarded for that, Ozzy. But let's move over to some NHL talk. Let's start at the top here. I want to address the Trouba Tomahawk. And you got to love NHL beat writers. And this, again, is no disrespect, but most of these guys did not play the game. And it was just so funny to hear these guys dissect at one angle, you can see he did it on purpose. But on this angle, you can totally tell it was an accident because his arm rises up and Frederick kind of lets go of its hand. It's like, dude, the guy slashed a guy in the head. He was not that far off balance. I mean, I don't know how he didn't get suspended for that. That was fucking blatant.
It was like, I know, I keep seeing all these people like, oh, look, like he was just trying to get his arm, he was grabbing his arm. So he's trying to get his arm out of the grip and he just happened to have a stick in his other hand and tomahawked it over. It's like, again, I get, he is trying to pull his left arm out, but Jacob Trouba for sure knows that his right arm is locked onto his stick. And if he pulls his left arm with his hand on the stick's coming over the top. I mean, you know that, right? Like, that's cool. And we have all been pissed off on the ice. I felt like tomahawking a guy over the fucking face too. I just didn't do it. Trouba just actually did it.
Ozzy, how funny was it? Like his interview today, the day after, or a couple days after, he's getting interviewed by Larry Brooks, their beat writer there from I believe the New York Times or the New York Post. And he says like, yeah, me and Frederick were actually pretty surprised that happened. It's like, dude, what the fuck are you talking about? We were both pretty surprised. Well, no shit, the guy that got hit in the fucking head is pretty surprised that you slashed him over the head with a tomahawk. Like, what are you talking about? We're both surprised. What the fuck?
And then he's talking about the rules. He's like, I play by the rules. That's the way I was taught. Don't get mad at me. Get mad at the rules. If the rules change, I'll change my game. It's like, I don't think that's in the rules, man. I don't think it says in the old-time hockey rules you can just tomahawk someone over the head. And then I mean, there were people who were comparing it to that Brashear who slashed Brashear again over the fucking head, and he just dropped and knocked him out.
I
Never
forget.
played again. I forget it. Was it McCarthy or
It might have been
who?
Darren McCarty. Yeah, Darren
I think it was
McCarthy.
Darren
Yeah,
McCarty.
I think you're right.
They were comparing it to that. Okay, that was not even close. That was bad. But
No, that
yeah, I
was
mean,
full on criminal. But how did he
yeah.
not get a game? Like at least one game. I mean, you're gonna find a guy making 8 and a hook, $8 million a year, 8 bananas, we would say, and he gets
Hartsey,
$5,000. Like,
Ryan
dude, that's
Hartman
like
just got suspended for 2 games for slew footing a guy. I mean,
right.
I
He
think
loses
at
40K for that slew foot because he's, that's what it equaled out to 2 game suspension in terms of pay. That's without pay. But a guy like Trouba just gets, I mean, 5K, like that's one night out at Tao just for you and your skunk having dinner, like in New
yeah,
York
like
City.
Sean Avery's. Sean Avery's like, I mean, true about 5 grand. The guy drops fucking a couple 5 grand just walking to the rink every morning.
hundred
Like it's
percent.
fucking nothing to the guy.
Yeah. So that was funny, but yeah. Moving along in our NHL talk, I want to bring this up, Ozzy. You might have a new insider in the game right now, and you might be looking at him.
Oh yeah, what happened here, Jordo? Because you obviously, I don't know if the people saw it who are listening, but Jordo breaks the news on Patty Kane signing with Detroit the night before. And you know how pissed all these insiders are. When they saw that, they had to have been shaking like this fucker. Because I
Oh,
don't know if they're waiting for it to be confirmed or whatever, and you're just out here like, yeah, he's signing day before he signs. It's
yeah.
like, I mean, I know you got your sources or whatever, so you're hearing this stuff. I mean, are you getting like, do these insiders are they talking to you too? Like, hey, well, like, where'd you get that? Or like, do you have to answer to any of these people, or like, how are you
So
getting this stuff?
it was funny, Ozzy, because I mean, even today you saw the news come out, and actually a good guy that he is, Frank Saravalli. I don't really know him, but he gave me credit, which was cool. He gave me the stick taps, and he said credit J Swish 24. He had it first last night, but so last night I go over to Nick's place, and I'm sitting there. We're having a little pregame dinner. He's playing the Lightning as we're talking, and it's Monday night, right? You were just kind of hanging out, and after we finish up eating, we're watching some games. We're watching the Makar game. We're watching some of these other ones. We were starting to watch the association a little bit with the Clippers and the Denver Nuggets because I had a little action on that one. But I'm sitting around and my phone starts going off, and I'm just, I can't name who was calling me, but I get a first call, and they're talking about the Corey Perry situation a little bit, which we'll get into next. But Kaner gets brought up, so I'm sniffing around that. And earlier in the day, I had a couple sources kind of leaning towards my way, saying, "Hey, Kaner, it looks like it's done in Detroit." I'm like, "Is that confirmed?" They're like, "No, it's not confirmed, but he's in Detroit. He visited with Stevie Y. He's had a couple meetings. Stevie's even flown to Toronto, where Kaner had been training in Oakville,
Mhm.
just outside of Toronto." So that day kind of shakes out in terms of yesterday. I was getting a little bit of intel later on about 9:10 Mountain Standard. I'm starting to hear that it is confirmed. Like he hadn't signed the deal yet, but it was basically he had put the ink as close as he could to the paper.
Mhm.
So I get that from about 2 or 3 people, and I would say from sources that are like 10 out of 10. Like I
Mhm.
I know I can run with this.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there, I'm like looking at my brother, I'm like, Nick, like I think I'm about to break the Patty Kane news right here. Like I was taking, I would say a 5% risk. Like I was told it was all but done. They were just waiting on it if they're going to do a 1 or 2 year deal, but it was leaning towards one. And it was basically
Yeah.
confirmed it was one. I didn't know the AAV on it, but I let it ride. I mean, who am I? I'm not like I'm getting paid to do this job. I'm not an
Mhm.
actual insider. So I fired off. It starts getting traction last night in terms of on the Twitter machine, or now X, and people start gaining steam. Like, is this fucking real? Like, who is this guy? Who's Jay Swish? He's like, they're better. Like, people are tweeting at me like, this guy better not be fucking with me. And been a diehard Detroit fan for 40 years. I'm like, just reading all these replies and quoted tweets. And so, yeah, that kind of goes on. And I wake up at about 7 this morning, and that's 8, 9, that's 9 Eastern here in Scottsdale. And all the insiders are tweeting it out, Kaner to Detroit, Kaner to Detroit. I'm like, well, fuck, I had this thing first. So I just jokingly quote the tweet, and I tweeted at like drags all of the disciples, all the Mount Rushmore of insiders: Drager,
Mhm.
Elliot Friedman, Sarah Valley. I even think I included maybe one more. I don't know if it was LeBron or whoever it was. And Sarah Valley actually gave me credit for it. So, fellas and ladies listening, you are now looking at your newest insider. Well, fuck, Ozzy. I mean, I think I got to join the Rat Pack and the Rat Race at this point, because today, and I'm not bullshitting you, I had assistant GMs calling me, texting me. I had pro scouts. I had player development guys. They're wanting other news on everything. I'm like, boys, I don't do this for a living, not yet, but it was just
Yeah, yeah.
a funny ass day replying to people
That's
because
what I wanted to ask you though, Jordo. Is this like, I mean, who's to say you can't do this job better than the actual insiders? Because you know these guys.
I would love
So
to.
at what point, yeah.
I would say I would love to do it, Ozzy. I think I'm pretty well connected for the limited amount of games I played. I mean, I was around the NHL for 4 years. Did I play a lot of games? No, but I was always up and down. I made a team out of camp. I'd always, I'm a guy that never shut the fuck up, and I like to make people laugh, make
For
connections.
sure.
So also, I think I wouldn't be suing anyone or throwing people under the bus. I think that's, just a
Yeah.
character thing that I try to pride myself on anyways. So yeah, I would love to do it. I would love to work my way up the insider rankings as the Heat Daddy has, every couple weeks. But it was just funny because now I'm getting the Corey Perry news, and that was something as we transition to that. That was something I wanted to stay away from, right? Like I had heard
Mm-hmm.
that last night in terms of
Mm-hmm.
getting it on with a staffer. It wasn't Bedard's mom. It wasn't anybody's mom. All the rumors out there were bullshit, but it was getting to a point where, the rumors were coming in and it was being confirmed that it was some sort of harassment. And to the level that they knew was it harassment, or was it just, he had hooked up or had a relationship with someone inside the Chicago Blackhawks staff? That wasn't known at that point. And it's honestly something I would want to stay away from moving forward anyways. Like, who am I to tweet
Yeah.
about what you do at home? And the
Yeah.
guy's got a family and you're going through shit. So that's something I would never really want to bring up. But now that it's out there, like I was getting news on that and people are asking me about that shit. So I don't know, Ozzy. I think
It's a fun circle.
I would love to be an insider, is what
Yeah.
a short story long there.
That's a fun circle there. And I want to mention the Corey Perry rumor of him. We all saw it. Okay. There's a rumor going around right off the bat. Corey Perry banged Bedard's mom. This is just some fucking idiot prick,
Yes.
who hears he's close to the Chicago Blackhawks or whatever, and he hears from someone that Corey Perry's kicked off the team for, some sexual relations with someone. And you just know some guy's like, oh, it's fucking Bedsy's mom, eh? And just throws it out there, and then everyone runs with it. I saw so many tweets, people saying it. It's like, God, that's just so. I mean, imagine Bedsy's. Bedsy probably, like Bedard and the team and like the mom and the Bedard's dad probably know it's all fake. But like, imagine having those rumors go around about you, because I'm pretty sure they're happily married. So it's like, they're dealing with questions. Probably people are like calling his dad, like, "You fucking serious? We're a fucking killer," like what's going on?
Like,
That's so insane.
you gotta answer questions about your line mate who's a 38-year-old veteran married, that he laid the woodshed to your mom, who's actually kind of hot. Like she just got the screws taken to her by my line mate and a guy that plays net front on my power play. Like, there's no way this can be true, but people are just fucking running with it. Like, imagine being an 18-year-old kid playing in the National League, and this is what you have to deal with. Like, it's just crazy what people. They're such morons on Twitter. Like, you see it with any time any news comes out about someone, though. It's always like a cheating scandal or someone banged someone's wife, and like, what are the chances that ever happens? I mean, it's slim to none. So that was crazy. We just hope that a guy like Corey Perry is going to be okay, and we don't like to get into the whole.
Jordo, I wanted to mention this about Corey Perry. Okay, the story. I guess story is it was with the staffer or whatever, maybe, and maybe he got a little too handsy. Who knows what happens? But you got to think that. I want to throw like Chicago under the bus or anything, but it's like, does Chicago as an organization actually care if Corey Perry bangs a girl? I don't think they do.
I don't think they do. But
But
in the
in
situation
this
they're in, right?
situation, I think
Right.
they're handcuffed because they're handcuffed because they've probably got some legalities coming at them now.
I think
There's
they're just
it's
so god
turmoil, and after what they just went through with
right.
the other all the other shit, this is the last organization that would ever need something like this to happen. So obviously they got to play the safe route. But like, imagine I was saying this with my buddies that, like, imagine if this was Bedard who did it. I mean, that shit is right under the rug. It's sitting under the
Ooh,
rug right now, and they're squashing it. Like, what happened? Like,
right under the rug and just old mob boss style. You're just burning all the
oh
evidence.
yeah,
100%. I just think they are so self-conscious and rightfully so of what they've been through of sweeping things under the rug, their issues with all that stuff with the Kyle Beach incident, and even more news coming out with that stuff with the
yeah.
trainer there, years past. I just think they're so scared to get into a bind again, and rightfully so. But I mean, a guy like Corey Perry, like, we're not going to get too much into it, but he's going to be dealing with a lot of stuff just on his own in terms of going home, and he's got a
Oh,
family. It's
he's
just
got a
so.
long road.
Yeah, it's tough, Ozzy, but let's move along to, well, these guys, man. And it starts with their coach. Did you catch the little bit of game film that came out of the locker room during the dad's trip? I believe the team was playing in Boston, or sorry, in Florida. It was the Boston Bruins, in Jim Montgomery, about that dad's trip. Did you see that speech he said?
Yeah,
I mean,
unbelievable.
for the folks that didn't see it, it was just so cool of, like, you know, he lost his dad a few years ago, and how much his dad meant to him, and what his dad always taught him was, you always give a second and third effort. And it was just such a cool, like, personal and real speech before a game. It's like, no wonder why these guys are such a well-oiled machine.
Yeah,
It starts at the top. Obviously, they have great leadership in Marchand, but this the whole culture of the Bruins, Ozzy, doesn't it feel like it almost gives you flashbacks, and I can only compare to our experiences, but like in North Dakota, where you don't find that a whole lot in pro sports, where every fucking guy cares about you,
hmm
and especially your coach.
yeah. No, it was one of the better talks I've heard. Especially, it's cool because it was before a game, and it really had nothing to do with hockey. It was kind of all about the dads, and the speech relates to just anyone in their life. And they're about to go play a hockey game, and he fired up with that. And yeah, I mean, Monty's been known. He's always been known. I've always asked guys, you can't find a single player that doesn't like the guy. And I mean, obviously, you see the reason why in that video. He's just that speech. Like, he doesn't stumble once. It's from the heart. It's smooth. The points made. And he knucks a couple of guys who don't have their dads with them anymore, like he does, and it was just, I don't know. Like, I wish I had that in me to give a speech like that. I just don't think I do. Like, that guy's special.
Yeah, absolutely. That guy, he seems all time. Friend of the program, Derek Forbert, is inside that locker room, speaks volumes of a guy like Jim Montgomery. And we've obviously heard the same over the years, no matter where he's coached, whether it was at Denver, even dating back to his days as a Dubuque Fighting Saints coach. He's won everywhere he's gone to. So the Boston Bruins, as of now, they are 14-3-3, top of the East. David Pastrnak, a.k.a. Pasta, 31 points in 20 games. That guy is unbelievable, Ozzy. I mean, just talk about the swag walking in the rink. The three-piece suits. He can wear neon. He can wear cheetah print. I mean, if you're picking a swaggier guy in the National Hockey League, I know the buzz is all on Willie Styles, but are you picking Pasta or Willie Styles? Because these are two guys that actually played together dating back to the junior days and their draft years, playing together in Sweden, together actually on a line. So, I mean, in terms of just like guys that just have that it factor, like those guys are like 1A, 1B as far as I'm concerned.
100%. They're you can just tell when they walk into the rink. Even when they, the outfits they wear into the rink, like Pasta's always dripped out. Like, I love that out of NHL players. Not too many guys do it. I love when the NBA guys do it. I love when the NFL guys do it. Not necessarily still, like, some of these NBA guys are going a little too far with it, but Pasta and Willie, yeah, like you said, they're 1A and 1B. They're the coolest guys in the league right now. I mean, obviously, Amats is always going to be up there, and let's not slight Nicky Schmaltz out in Arizona. I know he's a brother, but that guy is they have that same personality almost, where they seem like they just don't care because they just know that everything's gonna be okay, and they're gonna have a fucking good time out there.
Yeah, that's a confidence level I don't think I've had since maybe junior, and these
Yeah,
guys are doing it in the National League. So out west, Ozzy, 97. He had 1+4 against the Ducks the other night. That's 5 points. I mean, I had a 5-point night in the Finnish League, and I thought I was the fucking man. And this guy's doing it in the National League. Like, to me, the West is so far down. It's very unpredictable. It's so much weaker than the East. Is this a team like Edmonton, if they catch fire, which we know they can do, is this a team that can just get into the dance and make something happen if they get a little bit of goaltending? Because 29 and 97 are going to heat up. It's just a matter of getting that goaltending and a little bit of D. You don't need a lot, just a little bit of D. Because, as I said, the West isn't perfect. I mean, you have LA, you have a team like Colorado finding their way, and then you basically have Vegas. And the rest is kind of a crapshoot. You look down the wild cards, even, it's like teams that are 500. So Edmonton could easily climb the ladder in the ranks. What are you seeing from up there? They're playing a little better as of late.
100% they are. And you mentioned the East and West. It was the same. It was the same last year. And I want to ask you about this and what you think about this. That what I'm going to bring up here, but it was the same last year. The East is strong. The West is a little weaker. The West wins the Cup. Are these Eastern teams, are they kind of shit out of luck right now because they're just beating the shit out of each other all season long, And then they get to playoffs, and you're beating the shit out of each other in playoffs. And then you get to the Cup, and it seemed like, Florida was basically dead last year, and Vegas was laughing when they walked into the Cup. Do you have an easier time winning out of the West if you make it out of the West right now to win the Cup? Because the whole season's going to be a little easier. It's not going to be as tough. And then the playoffs are going to be a little easier. It's just, I don't know. I feel like, because they are so different. Like the top 8 teams in the East are almost all better than the best team in the West.
I mean, I think you're onto something there. I would agree with that. I mean, you look at a team like Florida, what they had to go through with Boston, coming back, going to Game 7, stealing one, then going through Toronto. And I just think that's it. It all adds up, right? Florida gets to the final last year. They play Vegas. They're so depleted. Guys are getting hurt left, right, and center. And then you play a team like Vegas, who essentially got challenged by the Edmonton Oilers. And Edmonton, to no disrespect, but they weren't on a level of some of these teams in the East.
No.
And to pair that with good goaltending, a solid backhand that wasn't taking the same amount of stress, through a four-round series. To me, it's kind of the same song and dance, because a team like Vegas, they're so deep, they're so heavy, they just reload. They don't really get any bumps and bruises. I mean, you go back to a quote that Jack Eichel had after the Stanley Cup. He's like, we all feel like we could play another round. That's an insane thing to say, going through what I know guys go through, and same with you, that play 4 rounds in the Stanley Cup final. I mean, you're walking away with separated shoulders, a couple of concussions, a knee injury. I mean, there's elements you got to battle that are unheard of.
Yeah.
And these guys are saying they can play another fucking round. I mean, come on.
It's ridiculous.
So there's got to be some truth to that, right?
Yeah. That's what I was thinking. And if you watched the Cup last year, they looked like that. They looked like they weren't as beat down as the other side, and they weren't. And it all adds up. It all compounds. I know people think, well, the regular season doesn't matter and stuff. Well, it does in that sense. Teams can get run down, and then once you get to the playoffs, it ramps up. And if you're already run down from the regular season, like Florida was, last year they had to battle. They had the last 21 games or whatever. They had to win like 16 or 17 to get in the playoffs. They do it. They're bagged from that. I mean, they already played a couple playoff series, so it's. I think the West, the team that comes out of the West this year, has the advantage, I think.
Absolutely. I mean, if you're the Kings and you're looking at your schedule in division,
yeah,
you're playing the Ducks. You're playing Man Jose. You're playing Vancouver. Yes, I know Vancouver is playing really well right now, but they're going to come down to life. I think they're a playoff team. I don't think they're as good as what they're showing right now, just because at some point they got to return to human level. You're playing a team like Calgary. You're playing a depleted Edmonton team for the first 25 games. It's going to take them till at least half the season to really find their game. So you're playing all these weaker teams. You're not taking those hits. They're less intense games. I think it really matters, Ozzy, because come April, when you hit the ground running and you got a little bit more juice, and then your first round is maybe not as intense as someone in the East, it all adds up. And I think the playoffs and guys I've talked to and even what I've seen, when you can get away with a little bit less games in terms of how many you play in the first couple of rounds. So say your first series only goes to 5 games, and then the next series is maybe only 6 or 5. And then, those games, they just stack up on top of each other, and they just, one less hit, maybe 10 less hits, whatever it is, it all adds up. Because when you're playing for the mug, man, you're running on fumes. To me, the first round of every year is always just a kamikaze round. Like, it's crazy how fast guys are buzzing. And if you can get out of that round with, 5, 6 games, right?
If you get out of that first round within 7 games, you're laughing.
Yeah. You're definitely saving fuel. So a couple more shout outs I wanted to give just in terms of the National Hockey League before we move on to the NFL talk. Brock Besser, friend of the show. I know we've been talking about him a lot lately, but he deserves his clicks. 15 goals, Ozzy, on top of the National Hockey League. I believe he's tied maybe. So good for Bess. He wanted a bounce-back season. He is playing well. Nikita Kucherov, he's actually playing tonight at Mullet Arena. I'm missing the game. The Tampa Bay Lightning are in town. 35 points in 20 games, Ozzy, for Nikita Kucherov. This guy is so filth.
Good?
Is that good? Like, how nasty are you got to be? I mean, even just staying on the Tampa talk, like, there's no way these guys don't re-sign a guy like Steven Stamkos, right? I mean, come on. He's your captain. He'll be willing to take, a little bit of a discount. I mean, keep this guy there. So I wanted to touch on those things. And last little thing, we don't have to dive deep into it, Ozzy, but I wanted your thoughts just on something in the National Hockey League. How dumb is the NHL? I mean, initially not letting Marc-Andre Fleury wearing that indigenous inspired mask. I mean, his wife is part native. He had a nice inspiring message on it from his dad, and he wanted to honor the Native American people, and the NHL says no. They let the NHL know 1 month prior that he was going to wear this mask just for warm-ups. It wasn't even for the game. Like, why would you shut that down? And it's the same stuff with the pride tape. Why are we shutting these things down when clearly you should be able to do whatever you want to do, man? I mean, these aren't offensive things. It's not like they're diving into the Hamas, situation in Palestine. And like, why aren't we letting these guys do these things, trying to honor people or just shine a little bit of light? That's something that hits home for these people because, I mean, in reality, like, who gives a fuck?
Well, I agree. I completely agree. Like, here's the thing. Okay. I was kind of against the crowd that, berated and, came at Ivan Provorov for not wanting to wear the Pride jersey.
For sure.
Like, that's his choice. That's fine. I don't agree with making a full team wear all these things. But if I would want all of these guys to have the choice to, represent something they care about in warmups at least. But then again, I do think about the NHL, and nowadays we're coming into a time where half the population thinks this, whatever this thing is, whoever this player's doing, is the worst thing in the world, and the other half thinks it's fine. And there's just such a gray area there, and I think the NHL's thinking like, hey, we just don't want to fuck around with it. You guys can't wear shit. You guys are just done. You can't support anything. You can't do anything. We're just going to avoid all of this because we don't want any controversy. So I understand that side. It does seem so stupid. Like, it's like, this is why we can't have nice things, people. It's because everyone complains about all this stuff, and you get offended by someone wearing a Native American thing, or you get offended by someone wearing pride tape because you're Catholic, or it's all these things. It's like, just shut the fuck up. You're not offended. No one's offended. This guy didn't hurt you. He's causing no harm. Just let the guy support what he wants to support if it's not hurting anyone.
Right. And if it does truly offend you, shut the fuck up. Who are you?
Yeah.
Just move on with your day. It does not matter. I mean, unless it's truly, to a level of significance where it shouldn't be allowed. But I think they can draw the line there. I don't think Gary Bettman's an idiot. But you do make a good point there. You do make a great point, Ozzy, where everything's offensive or someone's always bitching. So why not just say no to any of it? You do make a great point there, and I did have that jotted down where, I mean, at this point, what are you supposed to do? That's a tough spot for Gary
It's a tough
Bettman
spot.
even to be
Yeah.
in, right?
Yeah. And yeah, why can't we just use our common sense and decide what we used to do, what is right and what is wrong? Like, okay,
Right.
guy wears pride tape on a stick for warm-ups. Is that right or wrong? All of us are like, that's right. Who cares?
Right.
Guy wears a swastika on his jersey, on his shoulder. That's probably fucking wrong, right? We can all make that decision. That's wrong. It's not that hard.
Right.
Let's just come to a general agreement. We know what's right and what's wrong, and we all know it. Don't try to tell me something that's not wrong is wrong, because you're being a little bitch about it. You're not offended. Just fucking look away. Close your eyes. Don't watch.
Yeah, and I just think even with such an emotional election coming up in the next year, it's like people just pick sides. It's like, dude, who fucking cares? But I think that's enough on that topic. Azo, let's move over to the gridiron. And let's start with our Live in 5 Turkey Bowl draft. So for the folks that listened last week, we drafted up a receiver, a quarterback, a running back, and a flex position with myself, Azo, and Mace. Total PPR scoring for every team that played on Thanksgiving. So that was led off by the Packers visiting the Detroit Lions. You also had the Washington Commanders playing Jerry Jones's Cowboys, and finished off with the Seahawks and 49ers. So he's not with us, Azo, but I hope he's listening because we want to give him a couple clicks here. Yeah. Jackie Mason, this year's winner of the Turkey Bowl draft, edging out Swish by 0.9 points on the PPR system. And I think he just barely clipped Azo by 4. So it was really close. Jackie's team of St. Brown, Dak, Laporta, and Gibbs totaled to 79 points and 79.74. So
I respect that on a Mace.
There goes my hero, baby.
Yeah.
So, that's awesome. Mace, we'll have to do something for that, brother. Ozzy, I don't think we're going to hold you to it. We talked about it a little bit. We aren't going to make you go either wrench out or the mirror pitcher shirtless there. So we'll talk about something. Maybe you just got the next round of drinks wherever I do see you, because I'm not going to make you go, nipples out in front of a mirror. We're going to have to do a push-up pyramid before to make sure you're looking high and tight.
If I'm posting that picture, I'm doing an absolute bicep workout before.
Oh, you might be cup in
bench. Oh, yeah.
You might be going White Goodman with the dick pic pump.
Put some edits on there. Make it look good.
You might be pumping up the old shock doctor, fella. Just making sure you're looking nice down there, the wrench. Let's get to our picks quickly. My lock was the Packers at +7.5 or +8, depending on what you got them at. Azo, what'd you have again?
I had the Bears. I hedgehogged it.
Yeah, you did. You hedgehog. You old sailor, you.
Yep. Fuck yeah.
So you had that. One thing I wanted to touch on, Ozzy, Turkey Day. It's a lot of football, bro. Like, I tweeted it out on the day as I'm sitting there just barrel hanging off the couch, can barely fucking see. What if you had some sort of variety pack in terms of multi-sports on Turkey Day? Because by the third football game, I love football, but I'm a little bit footballed out. Like, can't we get NFL, maybe an NBA game followed by an NHL game, and then maybe a Sunday nighter just to kind of ride off into the sunset? What are your thoughts on 3 football games? Do you like it, or talk to me on this?
No, I honestly I kind of prefer two is nice, but I just like watching the Lions on Thanksgiving. It's tradition. Whoever the Lions are playing, you watch the Lions, they eat the turkey after. That's enough for me. Like you said, it's a lot of football. And, it seems like watching football nowadays is just watching ads. Whether it's college football, whether it's NFL, it's like, they really only play the game for like 10 minutes. And then the rest is like production show. And it's just like, It was too much. Like you said, I'm on your side on that. It's just too much. I think 2 is fine. 3 I didn't even watch the third game. I'll be honest. I was
Yeah,
out.
I was in and out of that game. I was on the couch, just felt like I took an Ambien after a little turkey and a little ham. But yeah, I agree. I think it's just such a show. It's such a just a production. And speaking of production, did you catch Jackie Harlow? How bad that was in the
Oh
in-game
my
entertainment? I mean,
God.
that might have been the worst concert I've seen on TV or performance of all time. I mean, that was straight out of like a 1999 prom. Like he's sitting in the middle of a gymnasium
Yeah,
playing for his buddies. Like that, I like Harlow too. Like he's good. Like
he's great.
first
He's
class.
awesome.
It's a
Yeah,
fucking banger. I'll
he's
drink to that all
awesome.
day. But like,
100%.
what the fuck was that?
I was kind of excited to see his performance, and he walked out, and I was like, I was feeling awkward. I was like, what is he? First off, I don't know. I don't know how that goes on with these artists. If the artist is the one in charge of like how the show goes and how the live, you're doing a halftime show in front of the entire nation, pretty much. Who is the artist taking care of that? Like, is Jackie Harlow making those decisions, or did he fire his production team like the day before and he just had to do it himself? Like, it was basically just him up there by himself. I feel like you do these halftime shows, you got to have cheerleaders, you got to have 1,000 people up there dancing around
Well,
you. You
sell
got to
the
have,
game.
yeah, you got to have crazy wires flying you through the air and shit. Like, why not? I mean, that's what you do. And he did. It looked like he just fucking showed up and with his his snowsuit on and just started singing.
Yeah, it's just. I mean that setup was literally like out of a glamour shots at the Columbia Mall in Grand Forks. I mean, what
Yeah,
was that? It was just like, what the
it's
fuck was in
terrible.
his dude behind
It's
him
like
and like
cheaped out.
yeah, I don't know. So that wasn't perfect. I mean, you got a guy like Luda flying through the goddamn sky down at the Mercedes Benz Dome, going move,
Yeah.
bitch, get out the way as he's cranking it down. So that was nails. Ozzy, what'd you have for your Selly of the week?
Yeah, I had it was quite clear to me this one was CJ Stroud and the stand up boy, and then it was from the movie Baby Boy. I
Yep.
think what's his name, Tyrese Gibson, and Snoop Dogg's in it. It's kind of a culture of the black community. It's one of their movies, but it's a great movie. It's hilarious. I don't know if everyone caught that, but that's a scene off that show, and it was unbelievable. It was dialed in. He shoots the guy and walks away.
I was wondering what that was.
That was
I
my
didn't
favorite one.
I
Yeah,
didn't cue
it
in on
was a
that. But
scene from Baby Boy with Tyrese and Snoop and all
okay,
those guys. So yeah,
love Tyrese.
yeah,
Good.
unbelievable.
Talk about a good chin, throw them both. I had Zay Flowers from the
Yeah,
Baltimore Ravens, the penalty kick, and then the Cristiano Ronaldo Selly. I love that. And then Mike Tirico on the call saying goal. Like that was it was so perfect. And then another funny one was Dak actually taking a turkey, what was it, a drumstick out of the Salvation Army bucket and mucking it mid-game. I mean, that's pretty fucking nails.
yeah, yeah. I love those Sellies, man. They're the best, and the defensive Sellies too. Where the whole team gets in on it and takes the picture in the end zone. I always enjoy watching those.
For sure. And just quickly, Azo, moving along to week 13 in the National Football League. Have you looked at the big board yet? I know it's Tuesday. It's hard to make a prediction in terms of what stands out to you, but have you had a minute or a second to look at just maybe one game that is Azo's lock?
Yeah. Let me think on this for a second. I I don't like I don't like the Chargers, but they're going into New England, and I think that New England team has completely given up. They are done. They're going to try to get Caleb Williams. They're so fucking bad this year. So I'm going to take the Chargers -6 at Foxborough at the Lighthouse. I just think Justin Herbert, like man, Justin Herbert. If you watch him, he's a dog out there. I know the Chargers aren't very well coached, but Herbert brings his game, and I think he's going to destroy this Patriots team.
I like that. I like that. Yeah, it's just hard to make a prediction sitting here on a Tuesday, if I'm going to be honest. But for the love of the goddamn game, this one stands out to me as a low over under. I'm going to take a page out of Mace's book here. Chiefs at Pack. The over under is set at 42 and a hook. I just think that's low.
Mm-hmm.
What do I know? but I think that's a low number. I always kind of flirt the line at about 46, 47. If it's under that, I will hammer the over. So I'm going to go over there. I think J Love stays hot. I think my homeboy is going to get it going. So I like that for my lock. Nail gun of the week, Azo. I'm going to start us off. Tyson Baker, National Hockey League linesman, who was dialed in and attentive enough to brace Dennis Gilbert's coconut as he fell to the ice in that fight against Mike McCarron. Flames at Nashville. It was about a week ago. So get that guy a stiff one. Get him a nice fucking mixy 90-10 because that was a great play. He was very attentive in there. Linesman Tyson Baker as my nail gun of the week.
That was nails. How do you have the awareness to pull that off so quick and be that quick in there? Like, it's almost like he expected it to happen. You just don't see that type of reaction out of people. But I've got my nail gun of the week here. Let's see. What did I write down his name here? His name is, I just have Davison football player. Okay.
I saw some. What was that again?
You see this? Okay. So I'll read it off real quick. So that's Davison football player. Unbelievable. Look at this guy's face, man. I mean, it's hilarious.
Just
like he's got the chops.
Just an old school white boy.
Just a football guy. But anyways, he writes to Davidson here, to Wildcat Nation. Over the last 4 years, I've had the incredible opportunity to serve diligently as a career backup offensive lineman here at Davidson College. While I only played during blowouts or when starters got injured, I refused to let that stop me from being a scrappy, sneaky, athletic, fundamental, high football IQ lunch pail guy. Many of you may ask yourselves, if he barely saw playing time at a non-scholarship FCS program, why does this guy think he has any chance in the NFL? This is an entirely reasonable reaction, and I don't blame any of you for thinking this. I will provide roughly zero on-field value for an NFL franchise, but I'd probably be pretty fun to have around. Thank you, Davidson Football. It has been an honor, and I'll be a Wildcat forever. Love that.
Declaring for the draft, Stonenails.
Declares for the draft. Unbelievable. Good locker room guy. I'd fucking sign the guy.
Fucking sign him right now. He doesn't even need to go to the combine. We know we're getting glue. So
yeah.
I love that. Definitely a guy you'd want to have a beer with, probably at a nice little fucking small town bar that's just
100%.
You got a funny name like the Squirrel's Nest or something, So
he'd drain fucking 30 of them and drive home.
Oh yeah, stick handle is right out of the parking lot. Folks, there he goes. Ozzy, last shout out I wanted to give live from the underground is the Flying Hawaiian out of Verona, Wisconsin. Do you remember DJ Soy Sauce from the Players Ball years back?
Yes, of course.
So Eddie Matsushima, who I went to school with at Verona High, a town of like 10,000, 12,000 people, is still playing in the Eastern Hockey League. That is the easy come, hard to leave, the cheese toast, ECHL. A guy that played D3, worked his way up from the Southern Provincial Hockey League and then to the East Coast Hockey League. Actually signed a 1-year deal with the San Diego Gulls this year on an American League deal.
No way.
Yes, lighting up the East Coast League. 18 points in 13 games. That is good for 7 goals and 11 assists for the Tulsa Oilers. So give this guy a fucking game in the jungle. I mean, he's worked his way up from
God
D3
damn,
River
give
Falls.
it to him, man. You got to give it to him.
He DJs in the summer. He went to the Players Ball with the boys. So San Diego Gulls, give this guy a fucking game. Give DJ Soy Sauce one game, because I know for a fact that one game in the American Hockey League for Soy would be like playing in the National.
Oh, 100% it would be. And a lot of those D3 guys, it's like playing in the National if you make it to the coast. Yep. Like, that's an insane story. Holy fuck, get this. He needs a game.
Get this guy a fucking game. So, Ozzy, that was a great snap. I believe the listeners were going to like this episode we have with former NFL linebacker Brian Peters. He has a great story, a good chin, just a nail gun. He's doing really cool things now in terms of, a mental skills coach, breath coach, just a guy that's a warrior, had to earn everything he ever earned. Had to work for everything he earned. So let's send it over, Pete. Ozzy, good snap. As always, tape to tape, fella. Woo! Yeah. Here we go, folks. It's dang. Folks, now introducing from the cornfields of Pickerington, Ohio, former National Football League linebacker and Canadian Football League Grey Cup champion. This Northwestern grad and first team All Big Ten linebacker set a school record, accumulating 301 tackles over his time in Evanston. A pure savage and ultimate nail gun, this guy worked his way to the NFL ranks through the Indoor Football League, the United Football League, and eventually through the frozen prairies of Saskatchewan in the CFL. He is now teaching young athletes and professionals how to gain edges and to reach their ultimate goals with a company he founded, Breathing for Performance. Without further ado, please welcome Brian Peters to the Live in 5 podcast. BP, what's up, baby? How
Let's
we
go.
doing?
Let's go.
Just the absolute juiciest Electric Factory intro I've ever had. I love it.
A slight stumble there, but I gained it back and I said, hey, you know what? It's okay. Low and slow here, Jay.
Yeah.
It was long-winded, but BP, dude, it's great to talk to you. How you doing, man? And thank you for taking the time, obviously, to join the boys over here. You're a complete nail gun, so it's always fun to pick your brain. But where are we at right now, brother? What's shaking?
Dude, Columbus, Ohio's home, so that's why I'm rarely here because I'm on the road coaching the breath work and exposure and the mental skills for athletes, and then I've branched into military and fire department, first responders and stuff. So like I'm busy. I'm learning myself. I got a girl out in Idaho that's off grid, so I'm just full-blooded gypsy, but loving life.
For sure. And, you know, I have always followed your stuff, even when you were kind of transitioning from playing into what you're doing now. And back then, BP, when I first initially met you, you were running this company with your buddy, just in terms of it was Mind Strong, and now it is Breathing for Performance. So I guess I wanted to ask you, and I want the folks to kind of lean into this a little bit and just get a little bit more background in terms of what it actually is. Because when I started working with you guys, and especially you, like the training was crazy, man. We were doing like 2 to 3 minute breath holds. We were doing this sauna, cold exposure. We were even doing things of like getting on the rower, doing 1,000 meters with our mouth taped and like borderline passing out. So we were doing, and you guys were, and especially you were trying all these different techniques and things to really gain an edge on your opponents or your competition. So just talk me through like how that was founded and what you're doing now. And are you still teaching the similar things that I was doing with you, 5, 6, 7 years ago?
Yeah, and it's it's a fun story in general, and I've adapted it pretty aggressively since then, even though that sounds aggressive in its own sense with mouth taping and aerobic capacity stuff. But like I found it in a really interesting way where after my first year with the Texans, so this is like 15 going into 16, we got a new strength coach. And right after the season, our team started paying for the sensory deprivation chamber, like the float tanks, where it's like no sound, you're in a pod floating in salt water and stuff like that. And the first time I did it was JJ Watt actually had a float tank built into his bathroom, and I wanted to try it. And then our team started paying for it. But I was at JJ's house and I felt like I was rotating. It was like I lost my shit and I got out. And then the team started paying for it. I went and I couldn't like handle my thoughts. It was basically like forced meditation. So I ended up just like kind of trying to overcome that by holding my breath in there and just being competitive, because all I had was my watch, like no light, no sound, that kind of thing. And I Googled how do I hold my breath longer, and it was free diving and Wim Hof. And I just went down that rabbit hole. And my business partner at the time, Harvey Martin, he was kind of in a bad place with transitioning from baseball. I think he had like the yips, not like just like the transition's rough for everybody, but he found like the Wim Hof method where jump in cold water. I think he met our guy D-Don at the gym, saw him doing Wim Hof and just set it up to him. Me and Harvey went to high school together for a couple years, like junior high school together for a couple years. And on my crazy football journey from Northwestern Arena, UFL Canadian League, I stopped in Minnesota for a year. And that's where Harvard like put his head down to help with MASH baseball. Awesome humans again. Shout out Steve-O and Tom. But so he was teaching like pitching and that kind of thing, like coaching kids. And anyways, we linked up there, stayed in touch. I found the breathing stuff like for performance. And then he found it kind of for the psychophysiological effect. And to finish my initial story, when I got to holding my breath to like 4.5 minutes, our new strength coach came in, which was like 3 months after I started this shit, and determined that our NFL football team through NordBoard testing and FMS scores was physically unfit to run. Telling an NFL football team that you're physically unfit to run is pretty crazy. And he like got up there and did the whole State of the Union. I don't care if you're DeAndre Hopkins, JJ Watt, nobody runs or you're cut and whatever. Nobody really ran. And we got back to running. And the second day we started running, he tried to run us into the ground with conditioning. And right then I just knew there's magic to this breath holding stuff at least. And that was the CO2 tolerance stuff. But like I was up running with the DBs and the receivers. I was 242 pounds at the time, and I could hear everybody breathing like inefficiently. Yeah. And I was 20 pounds more than what I am right now.
Yeah.
But anyway, so then we went down the rabbit hole. Like we paid for Brian McKenzie to mentor primarily Harvey, myself a little bit, and then it just kind of took off from there. And so like I was coaching some NHL guys when I was still playing. And then, cause like Harvey was using the stuff, PED stuff, I was going like just down that rabbit hole of chasing edges there. And then we kind of built out programming, and it just kind of took off. And then I finished playing, like eventually went full-time into the breath coaching and exposure stuff. And then me and Harvey went our separate ways. And then I've just gone hard in the paint ever since. I've been learning from anybody I can get around. And now I have my own, in essence, like brand and tactical appliance of the skills for performance. And it's been pretty cool to see pro players from all sports, even just like all the Gen Pop humans, gravitating towards like the simplicity and the application of the breath work. And now it's just like off and running.
That's unreal.
Yeah. Long-winded transition.
Peter, you said when you got in the float tank, you couldn't handle your thoughts. Now I've heard about these float tanks, and I've heard that's the deal, and everyone gets scared and they can only last so long. I mean, can you describe like what are you thinking about in there that scares you?
It's not like a scary thing. So the first time, like I literally just, it's almost like a heavy dose of shrooms or something, where you feel like, I felt like literally I was rotating backwards, and it wasn't like a queasiness to like puke or anything, but like I was like, I don't understand this. I'm out. And also like JJ was having a pool party after that. So I had like a carrot tempting me out of there. Yeah. But then the next time I went, my distraction was holding my breath. But like, really it was, I mean, this goes down a massive like self-reflection rabbit hole, but it was like, I'd never sat with my thoughts. I was a very go. Once I put my mind to something, I set structure to it and I go and execute. And at the time I knew I could play football and I wanted to play in the NFL. I just got there. I wanted to protect the dream, and that's what I was doing. But there's so much more to myself and my consciousness that like I hadn't even begun to tap into. And my ability to talk to myself and my self-talk was never like accurately addressed. And so you get in there and you're just like, mind wanders and it just keeps going like rabbit holes. And eventually, like I was able to, the breathing was in essence, the distraction at the time. But then around that same time, I started journaling and I started asking myself questions and learning from different folks, where it's just like, all right, there's more than the football identity. Like there's a human here that needs to seek balance on top of this work capacity. And it just became like an endless pursuit. And I mean, I'm still pursuing the same balance of work and rest today. It's just in a different format than NFL.
For sure, Pete. And I think I've had the same experience the couple times I've done the float tanks. I remember I was doing one in San Antonio when I got sent down to the jungle, and you guys had recommended me to go try one. And me being the idiot I was, I think I went in there a little half cooked. And after like 5 minutes, I'm like, holy fuck, I got to get out of here. You know, you take a little edible or something. I'm like looking around. Yeah. I'm like, all right, that's enough. Open the hatch of this bitch and I'm getting out of here. But it's funny you say that, because do you remember when you came down to Phoenix? It was during like COVID, and we were doing the breath work in the back of my brother's yard. And we were doing those breath holds where you basically would hold your breath and try to walk down like 20 yards and back. And then basically, go as long as you can to hold your breath, maybe even do like a little bit of a high knee exercise, and then get back to a point of, basically your brain is scrambling to get oxygen. And then you're basically have to like try to recover without like panicking within your breath. Like what was like some of that sort of training, like even just to tell the folks, like what was that actually doing for you? Was it teaching you how to only expand your lungs, or what was that exactly?
I mean, it's an excellent modality just for humans in general, but it's special in the sense I learned it from Laird and Gabby Hamilton and PJ Nessler with XPT. I watched them do it, eventually got connected with them, and was lucky enough to go train at their house and do one of their events in Kauai with them. And the pool training is just another level. It's an easier modality than doing the suffocation stuff on land, because you can cheat, you can get sips of air. There's not as much fear. And particularly with my like fighters now, like water stresses most people out until like you learn what you're doing and learn. It's really just teaching stress inoculation and the ability to stay calm in chaos. And a lot of times you'll see people get in the cold tub or the pool or do other suffocation work, and they try and like muscle through it, which is like the boys kind of way. It's like, oh, we're tough, we can get through anything. But like suffocation's undefeated. Like water is undefeated. Like you're not gonna beat it by trying harder. Yeah. Like how you progress is like just beneath the surface of the water is like magical to myself in general anyways, because it's such a clear, concise view of what you have 100%. And how you move, every step, every reach, how much stress you're holding or emotional fear and doubt you're holding in your body shows up in energy conservation or energy abuse. So it's like, okay, now how calm can I stay? What muscles am I wasting energy on contracting? What's my mind doing? Because like brain eats up energy too. So it's like basically I use the pool now to breadcrumb guys into energy conservation tactics, which a lot of the breathing stuff ends up being, can I downreg faster than you? Can I breathe less than my opponent? And you see it in UFC fights where the guy dogs out first. Their physiology tells you what's happening, starts panting like a dog, eyes drop, all that stuff. So it's just like, okay, that's the language. The modality for the day is the pool. And yeah, like you're beating stress and you're beating like the fear of drowning and that kind of thing. But really, it's for me as a coach, it's an opportunity to see how efficiently you move, how efficiently you handle like fear, stress, and in general, and then how far can you push yourself? Because as long as you don't hyperventilate, like overbreathe, like Wim Hof breathing into the pool, like you're gonna be fine. It's like passing out is really, really, really hard in the pool if you don't hyperventilate. That's where people get in trouble.
For sure. And I just wanted to, before we get into your playing career, because you do have such a cool story, like some guys that you played with at the professional level, even the highest levels of the NFL, or guys you've trained, you've seen in other sport, like who's one guy that is just a complete nail gun, like we like to call it, just a savage in terms of maybe even coached them a little bit, or you just saw through sport where you're like, wow, this guy, he's got it all. And you could add a little things to him, but who are some guys that just kind of stick out in terms of just being savages and, guys you've worked with or have just seen, over your years?
Yeah. Savages the first person that comes to mind is Brian Cushing. Good buddy of mine, but he, absolute nail gun of a human, but he like, and we were boys the whole time we played, but I didn't understand the human until like I podcasted him and saw another side of the human that I wish I knew when he was playing. It would have maybe demystified the human a little bit, but his discipline, attention to detail, obviously like I'm a sup guy. And then he kind of took me under his wing there. Like we were using the same IV guys. I was using his functional masseuse, all these things. And so like I respect anybody that doesn't like protect their shit. Like once you're on the same team, like rising tide lifts all ships. Like as long as like you get, like he gets his stuff taken care of. Like I've just been around humans that protect knowledge for their own like selfish sake. When you're in a team environment, to me, like that doesn't make sense if you're trying to win and you're trying to get everybody recovered and fueled and stuff. So that was always something that when people were open with whether knowledge, resources, advice, those kind of things, I always admired that in humans. And Kush was a really good human in that regard. But the special thing about him was his intensity from the moment he stepped in the building. And he was the same person every day. Like, I'm a believer that one of the best words to describe like a true professional is they're predictable. And he personifies that to D. You know what Cush you got every day. Every time he stepped on the field, the dude treats every snap like a street fight. That's predictable. Good or bad play, the next play, he's going to be the same badass motherfucker. And a lot of people don't like, they hear predictable and they hear like, oh, we know what he's going to do. He's not like, but like, that's the definition of me, like psychologically and physically. Like, if I'm a coach and my player shows up and he's the same person every day, same intensity, I use less energy to coach the savage. And like now, and that bleeds off on other people, but but then you see like outside of football, you see the other side of the human. Great dad. He's basically a full-time coach for 2 of his sons right now. And there are monsters, like ripped up 8-packs. He's been like, they've been rolling jujitsu since they were 3. He's been having doing like grip training on the monkey bars since the same age. I think one kid just scored 8 touchdowns in a football game. Like, but he cares so much and he coaches them so hard. And he taught the kids that like the hard coaching isn't negative. It's just like feedback for them. So the kids like give it back to them. So their baseline of being scared is not Brian Cushing. So I don't know who they're going to be scared of in general, but I think it's really cool the balanced human he is. And obviously he's a great husband, all these things across the board, but it's cool to see the dynamic of who's a savage, like and intentionally put that mask on when he walked in the door. And then when he walked out, he went home, awesome dad, like great husband, like much different human than in the building. And I even coach that now when I start talking about guys having the ability to balance and change states. I use breathing to change states, sympathetic, parasympathetic, up-regging, down-regging, in and out of scenarios. You can breathe yourself into how you want to feel. And so particularly him, like it was so cool for him to change mass. So now I coach the same thing for humans because you don't have to be the same person all day. And really you shouldn't be.
Right. Man, he would absolutely crack dudes, man. He would just flat on smack.
Remember when he headbutted that guy without his helmet on? He headbutted the guy with his helmet on.
He would be
was
like
insane.
Leaking oil, leaking blood. Like he had like that hockey fighter heavyweight kind of mentality.
Dude,
like on the gridiron. Like he was insane.
Verbatim, he treated every snap like a street fight. And he dude, like my favorite Cushing thing is like I don't know if he would go out of his way to do so, but he threw up before every game, and he would most likely strategically throw up during team prayer. And so, but dude, he's the man. Like it was,
you just have to like pull trigger. Like I know like goalies in hockey, some guys have to do that before every game because they get so nervous. Were those just nerves, or is that just like a tradi or a tradition? I like to call it. He built into his regiment. Like Cush had to throw up.
I don't know, but I coach against that, like that queasiness, like that change. That's your body changing states. Like you don't want to play asleep. Your body's shifting into fight flight. So it's like that sympathetic thing. That's blood leaving the stomach. It's going to the extremities. Like anybody that thinks, oh, I'm queasy, I'm going to throw up, and is like ashamed of their body, like for doing that. No, like you're going to a fight. You better have blood where it needs to be. And so like true. People always just kind of look down on like, oh, I'm nervous, my stomach, that blah, 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 or butterflies is what everybody calls them. But it's like, that's a great thing for high performance, in my opinion. But I always think that the throwing up before a game is funny.
Do you think that I like to think you can train yourself to have that type of discipline, to bring it every day, treat every snap like it's a street fight? And I mean, I know people say, it might be personality, just who the guy is, which is probably part of it. But there's got to be days he doesn't feel well, and he still shows up like that dog he is, even though he's not feeling too well. I mean, did you see him did you see him do anything to like train himself to be this way? Or, like how do you bring it every day, every time you step in the locker room, every snap? Like it's just, that's such a hard skill to master. And it's just, there's got to be a way he's doing it.
Yeah. And like, I didn't really learn until I started asking him questions, and I'm speaking from speculation in that aspect, but what he's told me is that his dad made it very clear to him very young that when you cross the line onto the field, like the physical lines of the field, there's no friends like that. That's just part of the game. Like you play with intensity, and he respected the privilege of playing professional sports so much that was enough purpose, enough motivation every day. Like you would have never known it until you asked him like how much he defended his locker and things like that. And I think everybody finds their purpose. I had my purpose always kind of changed. But you always got to keep that proximity to your purpose pretty close. I think he was elite at doing that. And he didn't articulate it. He would like, he had the, like, he was basically like a bully from an 80s movie in the locker room, but he, but until you got to know the human, you understand how, like, the dude cared about the game so much. So, and like, and I can tell 100 stories about 100 guys are similar. He just, I got to know him, and then it was just so apparent how intense that human played on the football field that it was just like, it's scarred into my soul at this point now.
Yeah.
So sick. He had the war paint on too. I know you were a big war paint guy too. Yeah. Just lather the fucking eye black on like
you got
Mel Gibson from Braveheart. Just,
yeah,
it's unbelievable. Yeah. But Pete, if we back it up, let's start from the beginning here, brother. You grew up in Pickering, Ohio. Sorry, Pickerington. Talk much, Jordan.
No, which is basically the boys always used to fuck around and say Pickerington Town Fieldsville from whatever movie that was. But
it's
not a very common name.
Is that Mr. Deeds or whatever?
Yeah, I think that's Mr. Deeds. Yeah.
I think it's Deedsy. So you grow up there just slightly southeast of Columbus. Like, what was a young Brian Peters up to? Was he just cracking dudes on the gridiron? Were you playing football? Were you playing any other sports? Or how did your love for the game of pigskin really start? Were you a basketball player? Like, what were you doing growing up?
No, I was a baseball guy for the majority, like up until high school. I started playing football in 7th grade, and I was like a backup most of 7th and 8th grade. Then I started playing quarterback and all this stuff. But no, I played every sport. I stopped playing basketball like sophomore year or something like that. But I was doing baseball and track in the same season. Football eventually took priority over all that, but honestly, like, my coaches instilled that love for the game in me, but it was the physical side of the game. Like, we would always do this like 7-on-7 kind of pass out game, and we treated it full contact my entire, like, ever since I got introduced to the game, and we called it Max 4, but we were decapitating guys. Like doesn't freshman, senior, doesn't matter. You hit whoever moves.
And football.
And so we had a really cool coaching staff that I'm still in touch with to this day. And dude, they made me fall in love with the game. And I ended up being this free safety that was quarterback in the defense. So they taught me the game. They taught me how to play it right. And they taught me like how to be physical, even up to the point where once I was lucky enough to get a scholarship to Northwestern, I showed up that first summer, and we have like player run 7-on-7s, and I decapitated our best receiver on like day one. And like basically got into a fist fight, like a pushing, pulling, like kind of swinging over people match. And like ever since then, I was like, okay, so Pickerington was different. Like people don't do this. And so anyways, like, it just kind of grew from there. And then Northwestern and Pat Fitzgerald, like that, he grew me up at Northwestern. But I didn't plan to be an NFL guy by any means. Like the fun thing about my journey it was all pretty organic. Like, I got interest to pitch in baseball in college and things like that. And then football, I started getting scholarship offers to like Air Force and MAC schools my sophomore year. So I slowly honed and did more track than baseball. And eventually it just like football took off. But then I get to Northwestern, and I was a late scholarship offer, those kind of things. And like, I get there and it's like, oh, I think I can play here, like that kind of thing. And so eventually, like, I was pissed I redshirted, didn't really want to stay there. It was a private school. Like, even I didn't even know that, like, I said the name of the school wrong when I committed. I was like, I'm ready to commit to the University of Northwestern. My coach is like, well, it's Northwestern University, but we'll fix that next year. And so, but anyways, it's just like this whole thing. I eventually got a chance to play special teams. Like, okay, I can be good at that. Oh, like, I can beat the guy out in front of me. Okay, I did that. Didn't really plan on going to the NFL till like I had a couple picks my junior year. Like, oh, I'll take a run at it. And then was a captain. And then I had like a first team All Big Ten senior season, led Big Ten in interceptions, and thought I had a shot. And I didn't get a call on draft day. The only person that called me was Coach Fitz. And with the body of work, I was like, I don't understand why I'm not getting a shot. So I was like just frustrated. And then Fitz gets me in to do like a rookie mini camp where you go try out and try and take all the one of the draft guys or the undrafted free agent contract spots. And I was competing against Mark Barron and a couple other draft picks. And I'm like, I can play with this guy. And that's where my kind of journey just sparked. And I knew I could play. And that was like my reason for the most part to fight through everything I did. But it was also like part of my motivation was fear of the real world. I didn't want a 9-to-5. I knew that was never for me. And literally was just like deathly scared of that on top of knowing I can play. And then I just went to work to make it happen. So I ended up, I started working as a like personal trainer initially to like just pay the bills. I was sleeping on my couch behind two of my buddies that went into the workforces. I was sleeping on a bed behind their couch in their apartment in Rogers Park, which is rough at the time in Chicago. And then my agent sends me out to Iowa to work out for the Iowa Barnstormers Arena Football League. And he basically told me I was already on the team, and I get out there and it's a 13-man tryout for 2 spots. Through the tryout, earned one of the spots, was playing football for $300 a week. Played there for like 4 or 5 weeks and then came back, went and worked out for a UFL team. They ended up signing me, but they ended up cutting me because NFL had their cut. So that whole first season, then like my agent basically dropped me. So I sent out emails to CFL, NFL saying, hey, I'm a dog. I'll work hard for you. Here's my tape. Here's my stats. Like, just give me a shot, which is ridiculous looking back. But the only thing that responded was the Saskatchewan Rough Riders. Like, come on up for practice squad. Let's take a look at you. And so I signed a 2-year contract from there and was like, all right, I got a shot. And so I was coming back to start working a couple jobs in Chicago, and but I was going to Columbus first. It was actually my birthday when I got back from my first year or my first couple weeks in Canada, and I got jumped by 3 bouncers, jaw broken, teeth uprooted mess. And I know this is a saga of a story, but wired shut, how my mandibles cracked. They're like, oh, you can't play football again. So I'm crushed because I have a 2-year contract, at least be a pro football player. And my I was super in the dumps, and my doctor comes over. I was sipping liquid Percocet through a straw. My teeth wired shut.
Couple pork daddies.
Yeah. Dude, but I'm blending up Chipotle. I'm blending up steaks. I'm blending up cookies. I'm drinking like 3 liters of food-ish to maintain because I dropped like 15, 20 pounds right away. And then a week after I was on the couch, my doctor comes over, Dr. Eric Serrano, who's like a father to me now. But he told me, get the fuck off the couch. You're going to work out. And I wired shut for the next 6 weeks. I worked out at his house 5 days a week. He taught me how to supplement, taught me how to train. And just by the time I got my wires off, I got all my weight back plus a couple pounds. I was the strongest, like lower body wise I've ever been in my life. And then I ended up going to Northwestern's pro day, even though I was under contract. And I gained 17 pounds and ran 10th faster 40, tested better and everything. I'd picked up long snapping. I've been like, I was just trying to make it. But then, so I go back to Chicago. I'm working 3 fucking jobs. I'm training kids. I'm a manny. I'm helping a hockey player pick up his kids and train his kid and make him dinner. And I take off and I go train myself at night at a boxing gym downtown Chicago. And then I'd like run where I could. I'd run at high schools. I'd jump fences. I'd do everything I had to do to make it and get my work in. And then, so eventually worked those jobs through the summer, went back to Canada. They put me on practice squad. I was just like a hustle bunny up there. One of our players, like in Canada, the football is a little different. The field goals are on the goal line. It's 20 yards long or 10 yards wider. All these 3 downs. Like
so funny.
Yeah, running start. Like it's actually, I love the game, the CFL football game, dude. I think there's some there's some magic in it. Like the stress factor that the NFL showed me was definitely higher. Like I think the level of competition's there. Like it's obviously not to the elite level of the NFL. Like but it's a faster game. Like everybody's a size smaller because the game's faster. You have to run more. There's a faster play clock. There's all these things, more field to cover. But like it was a 4.5 hour work day. And I found a mentor up there in Ray Williams, who's a linebacker that played in the league for a few years. And, he taught me how to like supplement even more. So we'd go to practice, like meetings and practice. And then me and him would go train for like 90 minutes after, cause we had so much time. And then, but eventually I got one of the linebacker that was in front of me at the time. He was tracking a post route and he ran into the field goal post and broke his collarbone. And so I got to play, and that's really, and then like I balled out on special teams, and that's where I made a name for myself in the NFL too. And then the next year I started at linebacker, and I was balling on special teams, and eventually got my opportunity back with the Minnesota Vikings after I started working out for like the Eagles and the Saints and some other teams, and they found out I have some rare blood condition, and which is just another obstacle, another problem to solve. And so, but I end up going to Minnesota. I don't tell them about my blood condition, and they signed me. I ball out in the preseason. They put me on P squad. Texans signed me 3 weeks later, and I only played 12 games. I lead the NFL on special teams tackles, only playing 12 games, balled out, and became like a special teams leader in Houston for the next 4 years. And I mean, I guess the rest is a fairy tale.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
So Pete, like your big break was probably getting from the CFL, getting playing time, going into Minnesota, and then getting signed by the Texans off the Vikings practice squad, right? Because you had an offer, I believe, from the Vikings, and didn't you kind of hold on that, and then you turned it down? Was it like a two-way contract, or was it a practice squad? Like, walk me through that in terms of how you got to Houston from the Vikings.
Yeah, it's a cool little story, because I again, like, the right people are in your life at the right time. But so the deal was, like, how it works in the NFL. If you get signed off of another team's practice squad, that team that signed you has to keep you active for 3 games to get you an accredited season towards pension and all that stuff. And once Houston made me an offer, which really it's like you're making, I think I was making league min. I was a 26-year-old rookie making league min. It was like $25K or $30K or something a game. And, but you only get 3 weeks guaranteed. And then the Minnesota, their counter was to pay me full active salary to stay on the practice squad with a promise to get me up as soon as possible to the active roster to get me an accredited season and all that. And so my agent calls me, says, "Hey, Houston has an offer." I'm at a charity event for the Vikings. I'm literally walking into an elementary school to volunteer. And he goes, "I don't care where you're at. Hop in an Uber." And at the time I left my truck at, I can't remember what hockey player's house it was in Minnesota that Harvey and all those guys
was it JVR?
I don't know if it was James's house. I can't remember whose house it was. I think it was the other guy whose family Yeah, Sexton. There it is. Sorry.
Yeah. He was playing in Russia at the time.
Yeah. And so they were all staying there. So I left my Tahoe there, eventually had it shipped down, but besides the point, did not to skip the story. But so I Ubered to the airport, and in the same time, all the Minnesota Vikings coaches are calling me saying how important I am, recruiting me again, that kind of thing. But I'm basically, the decision I'm left with is take a chance on yourself and go play for 3 games in Houston. And maybe they keep you active. Maybe they cut you, and hopefully Minnesota or somebody else signed you. Or I get to stay in Minnesota and basically get $500,000 guaranteed. And so I was like, I walk into the airport. I'm like, wait, I'm the last person to get on the flight, because I walked up to the bar. I was like, I need a double Jack and Coke. I got a decision to make. And so I'm sitting there, and I'm talking to my people. I'm thinking to myself, all this stuff. And my college quarterback, Dan Persa, I slept on the bed behind his couch for a year and a half and that kind of thing. He goes, I already talked to my brother a couple of times, my parents a couple of times. And the first sentence out of his mouth is like, "What the fuck are you doing?" He goes, "You spent 3 years in 3 different leagues to play in the NFL, not practice in the NFL. Like, get the fuck on the plane." I was like, "See ya."
Get on the bird, baby.
So yeah. I get on the bird, and my dad calls me while I'm on the plane. He goes, "Listen, me and your mom talked, and we think you should stay in Minnesota." And I was like, I'm on the plane, and like everything worked out. I had people in Houston. John Simon, I lived with him when I got down there. Just great humans. Welcomed really well down into Houston, and like I still got my peoples down there. But that was kind of like the decision point. And then who knows, all the other breaks in the road were the right opportunity. Like if I don't make that 13-man tryout for 2 spots in the AFL, do I keep playing? After I got cut from the UFL, I got cut from a league I didn't want to be in. I was like, oh, this shit's over. It was a hope and a prayer that I emailed out people, let alone they'd respond to an email from a player that never played in the NFL or anything. So anyways, it just a lot of blessings, grateful for the journey, but it just, it's cool where most of the time, like as long as I decided to bet on myself, like I was cool.
Yeah.
And Pete, like the one thing I respected and still respect about you to this day, like you were just a dog, man. You were just a football player. Like in 2015, you led the league in special team like tackles, I believe, right? You led the whole league. You at least were tied for it. Like, what was your mentality? You kind of just touched on it right there in the sense of you were willing to do whatever it took, but like, were you just going in there every day? Like your job wasn't guaranteed. I'm just going to go there and fuck it up. And more
Vince
day in the
Papali
NFL.
mindset.
Yeah.
You had to be living and dying by every day because who knows with a guy in your position. I mean, you ended up being a captain on the Houston Texans for 3 years as a guy that basically came out, on a limb. It's just crazy to think about, a guy just going in there and just fucking beating that door down.
Yeah, and it's dude, it's funny just looking back because like, dude, that first year, like I barely remember the year, and to a couple coaches, I don't know, to their accolade or whatever, to their compliment, they like Mike Vrabel. No matter how good I did the week before, because he taught me a lot of like mental skills that like I look back now and like massively thankful for that human. But he's super intense coach, like he'll motherfuck you, like that kind of thing. But no matter how many tackles like I had, which like I came in like behind the 8 ball, it was game 4 and I hadn't even played a game yet, and just I started rolling. He goes 20 tackles is the fucking number. Like you're happy with 10, and it's just like, or like happy with 12. He goes I was a starter on defense and I had 12 one year, and they just like always kept chirping me and like kept me on edge. And then another thing that was just like the first like fucking 7 weeks, the director of pro personnel, Brian Gain, would come in to the cafeteria while the players were in there, wouldn't really talk to anybody, but talk to me every fucking time. And like, bless him for this. I don't know why I'm cussing at him, but he would come up and he goes, hey, you got to use your hands more. Like we need to find somebody else. Like, dude, he would just send like these one-liners that would cut to my soul. That would be like, fuck, I got to go. And like, and then so like, it's funny how the evolution of like your mindset changes. And I look back and like, did I lose my edge? Like all these things. And like, there's different variants of leverage and timing with how veterans practice and all these things. But dude, what got me there was going balls to the wall every time. That's the only reason I made it in the CFL. Like literally they like my first full season up there, I wore white gloves because that's what Tampa Bay gave me at rookie mini camp. But I wore white gloves and I wore number 50. Everybody just called me 50. Nobody knew my name. But every time the head coach, like they told us to go chase the ball. Like if defense, you got to finish at the ball. And so I was like, all right, I'm taking that to heart. And so whatever the play, run like away from me, I'd run and go hit, like punch the ball, whoever had the ball, fade route 50 yards down the field, like incomplete. I'd go and pick up the fucking ball. And like, but he made an example. Yeah. He made an example of me early where it's like, hey, everybody be like 50. Everybody be like white gloves. Everybody be like 50. And I was like, okay, if that's my fucking thing, that's my thing. I'm a workhorse. Like, let's ride. Like, I can do this all fucking day. If that means I get to keep not being working a 9 to 5 and I get to keep living the dream. And when I got to Houston, it was that like, dude, I like walk through days. I wouldn't let anybody block me. And like veterans fucking hated me. And it's funny because when I
not let anyone block you on a walkthrough. That's
yeah. But like, dude, I was very like observative, I think, because like when I was up in Minnesota, Everson Griffin, monster, incredibly talented human, but he like, and Adrian was the same way. There was no walkthrough tempo, because as a backup linebacker, I have to like go on the scout team and then walk through. I'm playing offensive tackle because this happened to me in Houston too, and I learned again. And Everson Griffin got off as fast as he could every snap and walked through anytime. And so, because he was training this response, kind of like the Cushing thing. And then, then Adrian did the same thing. Like, when I had to go give like a show look for a walkthrough, like Adrian would like fucking drop his head on me. And I'm like, do this walkthrough. And then, but what I saw is that the best players only have one speed. They have like, they have two speeds. They have like sleep and kill. That's it. It's like, it's all out or rest. And so, so I get to Houston and I see the same thing with Cush and I see the same thing with JJ Watt, primarily because I had to play like right tackle and he was rushing me in walkthroughs. And I don't think I blocked him twice in like 3 years of scout team. But besides the point, he got off on the ball every time. It was ingrained in him. So it's like, I don't know if it tailors into the game where it's like, he never doesn't get off on the snap. And so there's no room for like this voice to creep in, like, oh, slow play. Oh, like they just always have that edge on the field. And I think that's what separates some of the elite players is that hyper competitiveness. And so anyways, like that's how I practiced in Houston for sure the first 2 years. And then like I'm in this leadership role and like I let it creep in where it's like, okay, no, we need to keep people healthy. I need to keep myself healthy when really like it's a kind of like emerging in two worlds because I wasn't to the point where, because I'd learned I trained with Adrian Peterson and Trent Williams, opened up a gym in Houston called O Athletic. And I went and trained there and the work capacity was off the charts, like so much hard work for 3 hours every day, unparalleled volume, like more than any hockey players. Like no offense, but anybody I trained with, that was
I believe it.
It was absurd. Like we were around like 10 310s in the Houston Heat, then hurdles, and then we'd go lift for an hour and all this stuff. But what I learned is that workhorse wasn't serving me anymore. I didn't get faster by working harder and doing more volume and capacity. I was starting to learn just a little too late that like, okay, I'm to the point now where when I'm working and getting stressed and adapting, now's the time. Smaller windows, more emphasis on recovery. I was into the breathing thing and doing all that stuff already, but I couldn't let go of the workhorse. And so it's like, it's what's the Icarus paradox? Like Icarus was the Greek mythology guy that when his wings melted, like what got you there doesn't keep you there all the time. So you got to understand when to keep learning, keep adapting. And that's something that and that's why my podcast is called Chasing Edges. And like at some point my performance company is called Chasing Edges because like when I got cut the first time and when I didn't make the NFL, like I was always just like, how can I get better? How can I get better? What 10 things, what 5 things, what better supplement? And that was in the back of my head. It was called Chasing Edges. I kept chasing edges. And that same thing just showed up once I got into the NFL, but the edge wasn't always work capacity. When I started pushing 30, it was okay. How do I recover? How do I get faster? Because really, it's really this like workhorse racehorse analogy. I like that. Like if you look at your sport, like I'm playing, most of my snaps take 5 seconds, like 5 to 8 seconds on special teams. Mm-hmm. Like that's a racehorse. That's not a workhorse. Like the Eric Lichter saying that I fucking love is like, you don't plow a field with a Ferrari. Like a workhorse is meant for that long, big work capacity. I was a racehorse. And when I was most successful on the football field is when I was playing fast and like, there's no work capacity necessary for that. It's more twitch. They took away like the running start and kickoff, which I had to like adapt and start training for. But anyways, it's just like my perspective changed and it was cool to look back now and see like what was right and what was wrong in my opinion. But like the one constant I always saw was that the hyper competitive guys that didn't have a walkthrough tempo that had one speed, those were the best players. And like, even like the Tyrann Matthews, like his mindset, there was no off plays. Like granted, he's not moving much as a safety, but his communication was so concise. Every walkthrough, every practice, like it was special. And like, you see why the dude's still playing. I think he had 2 picks on Sunday. He's a dog, but
honey badger, baby.
The honey badger. And he's like
he's a ball hawk.
Well, that's where like I love. He's one of my I only played with him for a year. Like we were captains together in Houston, but he's one of my favorite humans, just for the simple fact that he was authentically himself. He was vulnerable. He was a leader. Like he led by example. Like and it's just like you observe these great any locker room I stepped in, I was like, who's the best? What do they do? And I watched. Like I learned like how to be a pro from Chad Greenway. I learned how to be a leader and an NFLPA rep from him too. Ray Williams and Mike McCullough in Canada. like it was second nature. Like, why are these guys in the league for 8 years? Why is this guy an all pro? And I just like, you watch, and then eventually you earn their trust and you ask them, and then, okay, they'll tell you how to do it. There's breadcrumbs to the top, but like most people don't want to pay the price or earn the
100%.
trust or that kind of thing.
For sure. Well, like talking about, when I think about football, my favorite part about football, thinking about it, is the head coaches or just any of the coaches. They're all psycho, they're football. It's not like any other sport. They coach differently. So like, I mean, obviously you've played for a bunch of different coaches. Are there any that, stick out to you that it's like, he's a football guy?
I mean, Fraves is a football guy all day and bleeds it. I swear, like,
oh yeah.
It's in his DNA. It's on the front of his mind at all times. He's like, there's just like the old adages, like he's the first there, last to leave. He won't, like, until every linebacker gets it, you're staying there. He still puts his hands on. He's to this day with the Titans. Like, one of my buddies is the DC down there. He's putting hands on guys. He's physical. I'm pretty sure he'd beat the shit out of most of the other NFL coaches too. But he still train. Yeah, but he's a bad dude. But he lives and breathes football. But again, like I talked about it a little bit earlier, but he taught me so, like, he taught me a big lesson about myself and the fact that I get the most out of myself with negative feedback from people. Like, it's just like it that hits my motherfucking button where I like, okay, but the one cool thing he did was, in essence, he kind of explained it in that fact where it's like, I'm trying to get you better faster. That's why I'm dog cussing you. Most coaches say like, oh, I'm coaching you hard because I love you. But really, like, once that switch flipped, it's like, oh, he's doing this to make me better the fastest. And now I coach on that. I think I may have said it earlier. I've been talking about this stuff all day, but in that same sense, like, that negative feedback and criticism is the fastest way to improve. Why would I avoid that? Why would I get emotional responding to a coach yelling at me? All he's doing is giving me feedback. And so, like, I should hunt feedback. I should hunt coaching, mentorship, all these things, because they're the only ones that can give me the best advice to get best, fastest. And I wasn't a pure linebacker. I was a safety. In Canada, it's like linebacker's a little different. It's like a safety hybrid kind of deal, but it's like, I was a big safety, so I played will linebacker up there. But in the NFL, like, I'd never been coached on shocking and shedding. And dude, Vraves would have me out there just like punching. He'd put this blue pad on his chest, and I'd punch it until I won. And I didn't win very much initially. Like, he would just bury me and then call me a pussy. And it's just like, but like, I look back and I see that, damn, that one, that dude cared. He wanted to win. And like, those are the two unmistakable things about Mike Vrabel. And he loves the game of football. And so, and his football IQ is off the chart. So if you just sat there and listened to him enough, listen to coach other guys, or listen to him with other coaches talking through concepts, you're like, holy shit, I don't know football to save my life. And so so Vrabel, when I hear like prototypical coach, like, Vrabel is that to a T, but that dude's a good human. And like, he cares, he wants to win. It's like he's somebody you want to play for. But if you don't understand Mike Vrabel, you think he's a dick.
For sure.
NFL coaches are just hilarious. Even a guy like Dan Campbell in Detroit, I think, is a guy that, no matter what sport he was coaching, he's a guy that I look at. He could even coach a sport like hockey to motivate guys. I look at, a guy like Mike Tomlin, who's buying his team black Air Force Ones because they're going into battle before the season. And his claim to fame is never have a losing season, baby. He's like, there's just so many different characters for NFL coaches. But Pete, something I wanted to ask you, like, who's the baddest dude you saw in the National Football League? Are we talking Adamakan Sue? Are we talking James Harrison? Like, when you looked across the gridiron and you're staring at that other sideline, or maybe you're the captain walking in for the old coin flip before the game, who are you looking at? And some guys you played against, and you're like, that's a badass motherfucker right there, baby.
That's
so many to choose from. So many to choose from, probably.
Some of these guys, I look at them like, I'm fucking scared sitting on my goddamn couch right now.
Yeah, and so, like, I mean, we were like Houston for a couple years there. Dude, we were Monsters Inc. We had Like we had JJ. JJ's a big ass fucking human. Jadeveon Clowney, big human. Scary predator human.
Yeah.
Cushing, scary. Don't want to be in an alley with Cush.
No.
And that like K-Jack is this violent little safety nickelback. Like we had like a pretty bad group of dudes. Like dude, just the baddest dude, because I've seen him train, and he's actually punched me in the head boxing and stuff a few times, and he's still doing it at a high level. Trent Williams, the left tackle, but that's somebody I would not want to fight or be anywhere on the wrong side of. But
a left tackle? Are you kidding me?
Yeah, and
me.
He's a bad dude, man, and he's smart. He's a leader. So at the gym I train at sometimes in the off season at O Athletic, I trained there for one full season and sporadically while I was still in Houston, but he would fly the whole Redskins offensive line down there. They train as a group. He wasn't this massive runner. He knew how to be the racehorse. Basically, he was training boxing like crazy, and we'd box every now and then, and we'd grapple and that kind of thing at this gym. We'd always like cross train. But dude, his feet and his hands and his power and dude, his strength were ungodly. And so like, as far as like you look at him, he's not the biggest freak in the NFL by any chance, but like that is one of the baddest dudes and one of the most predictable professionals that I know. I don't know what year he's on now. It's definitely double digits, but he might even be one of the highest paid left tackles still to this game, over 30, which is absurd. And but I think he's special in that regard. But I mean, there's like, it is pretty cool to look at an NFL locker room. But like you'd be surprised how so turn it back on you. Who do you think of as freaks in the NFL?
In the NFL?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Trent Williams would be one. He's always clearing. Like you see scuffles in the NFL if you're watching the Niners nowadays, and you see Trent Williams walk in, and everyone just fucking scatters. And I mean, obviously, Jordan mentioned James Harrison. Like you growing up watching James Harrison, like I thought he was gonna pop out of the TV and beat the shit out of me. You know, like that guy's got intensity out the fucking roof.
Yeah, I even looked at guys like Rodney Harrison back in the day. If you were caught going up the middle as a receiver, he was going helmet on helmet. He's knocking your ass out. Like he was a true gangster on the field. Even a guy like Aaron Donald these days. I'm trying to think of just like guys that I was like, holy fuck. Like,
yeah, dude, one of the biggest freaks, like physically looking, Minnesota guy, Daniil Hunter. So he trained it with us. Dude, he trained with us at O Athletic. So because like I think he's from Houston, but he dude, if you just like Google a picture of him, like the first picture I saw of him was him at LSU, and it looks like he has snakes in his arms. Like he's that ripped, but he's also like 6'6", 260, just shredded. And he got to the league and he was like 21 years old, which is rare. It was rare at the time. And so then he we were rookies together technically at Minnesota, and I think he's leading the NFL in sacks right now. He's a freak. But like the craziest thing I've seen is him beat we had a group of savages we were training with, and like that's who I wanted to be around. I wanted to be around savages to see what they did, why they're savages. And so it was Adrian Peterson. Cush was there that first year too. Daniil Hunter, obviously Trent Williams. Like it was him and Adrian's gym. But then like Joe Mixon was there. Jameis Winston was there.
Jameis getting the hips going.
Oh, dude, yeah, hips going. Dude, he's a character. He's a cartoon character. But he's so positive. Like it's like I was only around him that. Dude, at the time he had Tim Grover, Michael Jordan's guy, training him. And then so Tim was hanging around that group too. But shit, I'm blanking on all the dogs we had. Melvin Gordon was there in his prime. And
Wisco running back.
Yeah, so we have a bunch of a couple receivers. Jordan Reed, who was a stud tight end for it was an all-star team. Daniil Hunter would beat them in 200-meter dashes. No. And and then like in 300-meter, like we would run 310s, and this dude, when he wanted to go, he would go, and it was special to watch. And
that's crazy.
Not every time, but just to see that dude turn on, particularly like even in like the dog reps, like one day we ran like 10 310s, and our rest was like walking back for a minute. It was disgusting. But like Daniil would start winning some at the end, and you're just like, what is this dude, like not on because he knew it wasn't on anything. He was just a kid, but he was a freak, dude.
Dude, that's literally a Sub-Zero refrigerator and deep freezer next to each other running down lane. And he's taking up lane 7, 8, and maybe even 6. Like, oh, that is a fucking freight train. But Pete, take us inside the locker room of an NFL locker room. Like you mentioned it a little bit of just the savages, the big boys. Like, who are you hanging out with as a linebacker, special teams guy? And after a Sunday night win, who's kind of going out together? Is it just all the single guys going out, or is it the defensive guys sticking with each other?
Yeah.
You know, the offensive guys or
Position
guys?
groups.
Like,
yeah.
Is it positions? Like, who are you going out with after a Sunday night win down in H-Town and like, hey, fella, let's go grab some beers? You know, did you have a clique there, or was it the whole team?
Well, it's funny, dude, because I've actually talked about this recently just with some of my buddies that became my buddies. But the first year I got down there, dude, it was like a punch in, punch out kind of thing. But I came from Minnesota, which was probably the best locker room I've been in because dude, first day of OTAs, Terrence Newman, who's like a 13-year vet at the time. I'm like, again, everybody thinks I'm Canadian. And Terrence walks up to me, he goes, hey, you golf? I go, yeah. He goes, you want to go golfing? And then, so we went golfing. It was like me, him, Adam Thielen, and Blair Walsh. So like first day, it was a cool day to like get to know people. And then he's like, hey, I'm doing this charity event tonight. You want to come with one of my buddies? And so me and him end up being boys right off the bat. But the cool thing about Minnesota, they had this structure where every Thursday night, you'd go out as a position group. And there wasn't a bunch of places that people would go. They'd go to these certain steakhouses or whatever. And so you eat a position group, then you kind of like join forces. Some guys would go home, some guys would go out. It was but I was golfing with the boys on the regular. Guys were going out to Lake Minnetonka together because guys had houses out there. And then I get to Houston and like there's like I wasn't too keen on being social anyways because I want to keep my job. But like I am a guy that likes to go out with the boys for a few cocktails, and I was single at the time, so like I was like looking for a little honey too, but.
Right, chasing a little trim
for sure.
Just a little tail, but
a little trim, fella. It doesn't hurt, eh?
Yeah. So my first year, like I didn't really go out the first like 3 or 4 weeks I was down there. Started to establish myself a little bit, and like the goal was just to go out for a few drinks on a Sunday. And honestly, the first person I started going out with was my assistant strength coach, Sean Hayes, who now he's the head performance coach for the XFL now, which is perfect because he's like if you ever watch Hard Knocks, he's the guy on there doing like Stone Cold Steve Austin impressions. He's a awesome human. But like me and him linked because like I was super into training. He had trained under DeFranco and all these guys, so we linked on that. He was a social creature that already knew people in Houston. So the first year I didn't really go out much my first year, but if I went out, it was with him. But then I picked up some of my guys, and it was never like Minnesota, but it was more social after that. I got into the charity events, so I had people outside of football that were always wanting me to do stuff. And then Brennan Scarlett was one of my boys, and DJ Reader was a rookie down there. And we ended up with a cool little clique where I always tried to have like a house that had a pool because like rent was cheap in Houston, and that's where I picked up a lot of the pool training stuff too. I was just demoing stuff by myself, super unsafe at the time. But anyway, so I would have I just tried to be a lightning rod. I had people over for a cookout, and if guys went out after, cool. But then we had a cool group. Like I guess like Ryan Griffin, like maybe guys you wouldn't know, Jay Prosh, our fullback, Tom Savage, a backup quarterback, and then dude, like I mean, but at one point, dude, like we had a group of the boys like watching the whatever Bachelorette on Tuesdays or whatever it was on.
Classic,
so like
yeah.
So like I'm sure it's like any other locker room where like eventually like once you're ingrained in the locker room, guys are asking you to do stuff. If you want to go out, you go out. But it was never as cohesive as Minnesota, which was just kind of interesting looking back. Or Canada. Canada was dynamite locker room. I love Canadians, dude.
For sure. And it's just such a different dynamic in terms of a hockey locker room where you have 23 in the NFL. You usually have about 53, and then you have the practice squad. So I was just curious, like, what type of guys hung out? Was it by position, or was it the whole squad, the single guys? So I was just curious there. But BP, you mentioned Canada, and we have a lot of Canadian listeners in terms of guys we played with, and especially from the good province of Sask. So take us up there. Take us, to the Grey Cup, the oldest trophy in sports, brother. You get it done. Like, where are you taking the Grey Cup? after you win that bad boy? Is it straight to Boston Pizza? Are you going to Earl's, to the Earl's Girls, like for a little chili
Boston
chicken? Like, where are you going, fella?
We went to the Earl's Girls first.
Oh, for sure you did. Don't savor you.
Yeah, you motorboating son of a bitch. And yeah, dude, with that Grey Cup year, dude, we had such a fun team that was like talented through and through. Like we kind of had all the pieces of the puzzle, and we got to play the Grey Cup at home too, which was perfect. And so I actually just went back for the 10-year anniversary about a month ago, and the love was there. Dude, people still had like my jerseys and posters. Like I was in a calendar, and like it was so much love, dude. Like Saskatchewan is legendary from that aspect. But
great people.
Great people. But did the Grey Cup
love the Riders?
Yeah, but
the Riders. They love
dude, the Grey Cup was a bender. It was dude. So from what I remember, we went to Earl's, and it was half off wine and salad night. So it was like girls' night. It was ladies' night, and so we only drank wine out of the Grey Cup that night, so we ended.
You're doing grapes out of the Grey Cup. Oh my god!
Yeah, I don't know.
Off a box of
That's
wine.
unbelievable.
Oh, that is so sick.
I don't know if that's I don't know if that's street legal, but we ended that night. We're in the locker room at the stadium. Dude, like multiple guys like throwing up wine. Like it looked like a damn murder scene. It was so damn funny. But it was just the boys. And then we had the parade, which was electric. So many people showed up for that. I can't remember all the details of the after party, but it was just, dude, like even coming back 10 years later, the boys didn't miss a beat. We're just picking up where we left off, and everybody like has their perspective and their stories from like how the year went and who's where now. Dude, it was just it was truly like a special, like that was probably one of my favorite moments for sure in football.
Yeah, that's unbelievable.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, my family came up for the game too, because I think they only came to one Canadian game just because it was tough to get up there. But my family was there. My brother was out with the boys. It was fun.
Yeah, that's unreal. You guys got back, had the old 10-year reunion with the boys. That's unreal. It's got to be so fun in Sask too.
Oh yeah, and their new stadium, everything's off the charts. Like it's like, dude, it's 10x better than what we had at the old Taylor Field there. But the fans were dynamite. And then again, like just like because we had some, I don't know how much you guys follow Canadian football, but we had like such a cool roster. Like our Canadian, like we had fucking awesome Canadian, like true like players that can play in the NFL caliber Canadians too. And this like, because you guys, I mean, like you guys had to play you guys obviously play with a bunch of Canadians in the NHL and all the leagues where it's just like the banter between Americans and Canadians in Canada was like, dude, it was legendary. It was so much fun because it's like one of my favorite little games the guys would play they would ask the American players like basic U.S. history questions, and like a lot of times the boys wouldn't know it, which is hilarious. And so I would like come and correct everybody, and it just I feel like that's a shit story, but anyways, it was
also I feel like the Riders get brought up on this podcast almost every goddamn episode. Pete, I actually have a Saskatchewan Rough Riders jersey with the name bar on the back, Pilsner 24. One of our buddies, shout out to Rhett Gardner. It was his dad's buddy's jersey. He gifted it to me like one year on our annual North Dakota hockey golf trip, like all the alumni. So it's hilarious. I always wear it. 24, which is my number at North Dakota, and the name bar on the back is Pilsner, obviously being the beer of choice there. But Pete, just speaking of benders, I kind of want to just ask you another question in terms of, I was always curious, like these guys, and especially, during a bye week, like what's an NFL bye week look like? Are you going full Giants boat party where you got the Timberlands on, on the yacht? Are you DMing some girl on Instagram saying, I got 2 tickets to Mexico, baby, we're going to Cabo? Like, talk me through like how you're setting up that bye week, because I know you got 5 to 7 days off and you're going to fucking floor it, especially if the team is doing well.
Yeah, I don't think we truly ended up with 5 days off. It was always like a 4. So like you're traveling. And so you get like a couple days wherever you're going. But that's just how OB ran the Texans. But oh man, dude, I was actually hurt for I think a couple of my bodies, but I was just laughing because so my girlfriend knows nothing about football. Mm-hmm. And I told her about bye weeks, and she thought it was like a sexual thing. And so it just like it cracks me up that was never a joke in the locker room for some reason. But right. Besides the point, no, I usually try to get home, like, or I went back to Northwestern one year and like did the coin toss and was like the honorary captain. No, dude, I don't got any good bye week stories. No, and
go to Northwestern, go to Buffalo Joe's, get some wings in you and have a couple beers or what?
Yeah, it wasn't anything crazy. Yeah. I mean, I think it's becoming more common now, guys, like actually check out, like, because like still there'd be a lot of guys that stuck around, which is interesting to me. And like, I think my first year, I don't think I left. I can't like accurately remember, but it's like a way to show dedication. I don't know, but anyway, besides the point, it just I think the bye week, like, because people catch shit for, I mean, obviously partying, but like they were just roasting somebody. Like, and then Brock Purdy went and did farm work at his girlfriend's farm and all this stuff. Like, who cares how these humans like down regulate and go enjoy their people and stuff? Like, just let the boys live. Like, the scrutiny's out of control. And
they're chirping Zach Wilson for going to, I think it was back to like Salt Lake City or something. He took a picture with his girlfriend at some restaurant, and people were like, "This fucking guy kidding me? Jets are 1-3, and he's going on bye week." It's like, what do you mean? He's going back, like he played college there. He's just going to have dinner with his girlfriend. He's not on a boat. He's not on a yacht with OBJ and the boys.
That picture is all time.
There's actually a Pickerington kid on the boat. His name's he goes by Otto Lewis, but Roger Lewis. He was a receiver for them for a little while, and so the rundown is. The rundown is that was a crazy trip in general.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I mean, anytime you're showing up to sail the seas of Key Biscayne down in Miami, and you got the Timberlands on and the denim sag down to your goddamn drawers, I mean, you're gonna have a pretty good time, no shirt on, regardless, right? And who knows?
Yeah. But it's like it's also we live in this phone world now where like you can get like no matter what you're doing, like. Even say a guy wants to go to the strip club or whatever, like there's guys getting snapped there and all this stuff. And it's just like, who cares if that's how they choose to live their life? Like everybody just needs to mind their own damn business. And it's just like, it's the celebrity side of the sport. And it's like, but the cool thing about football is like, actually the majority of people don't know what you look like because of the football helmet effect. So it's just I think I think people sleep on the fact that I don't think even like diehard fans could identify 80% of their team.
Especially if you got a little tint on that visor too, you got that little tint on the visor. 100%. It's so nailed. Pete, the last question I wanted to ask you, Ozzo, I don't know if you have anything else, but I wanted to ask you, do you still watch the game? And just give the listeners who's your Super Bowl favorite or a team that you think can get it done this year?
Yeah, dude. I love the game still. Obviously, I didn't watch it for like a year-ish, like after I finished playing, because like I couldn't turn the switch off and watch a game and not dissect formation, tendency, where's the ball going, like that kind of thing. And it just like I wasn't playing, so I was like building up angst that like, oh, I used to beat that dude's ass. Why am I not playing? That kind of thing. So I just stopped watching for a little bit. But anyways, this year, I mean, it's been an interesting year. Like I think I saw some people's favorites all just get busted, but I think the Eagles are pretty complete. I think how they built their roster, like top to bottom, is pretty elite. Mm-hmm. I know one of their scouts really well, and hearing the inner workings of how they find players and draft players and how their culture is set, and it's just like they're going to be tough to beat. And you saw them scrap this last week against the Bills. Like I think the Eagles are the team to beat. The Chiefs just have been hot and cold, but they always have the caliber a little bit. But I mean, who else has been bang? I mean, the Ravens look great against the Chargers.
San Fran, they got McCaffrey. They're over there. Around the NFC.
Yeah, dude, I love their roster too. I think they're healthy again. Yeah, because the other Bosa got hurt on Chargers, but Yeah, dude, I mean, they picked up Chase Young. Like they're dangerous. Yeah, so I'd say Eagles 49ers would be my top two. Then like honorable mention would I'm going to say the Ravens right now because I was surprised at their defense. Like Clowney's been a wrecking ball this year on defense for them, and they got some young studs that are playing hard and heavy. But yeah, I mean, usually like you try and look at guys that like teams that can run the ball besides like the Chiefs outliers and stuff. But yeah, Raiders are honorable mention for me right now. I'm trying to go through the league. The Dolphins got some freaking firepower.
Oh, yeah.
Tyreek, 2K Tyreek, he might get to 2,000 yards. That's crazy to think about. Yes, they do have the extra game, but he's been balling out down there in South Florida.
Yeah, they're just like they have fireworks, and if the offense gets rolling, I love their coach, dude. He like it's the guy you want to play for. I mean, like you can find a reason to play for anybody, but he gives you a bunch of reasons where it's just and that it's a cool thing to see the contrast. Like obviously we talked about the hard ass coaches, but like look at the contrast and like look at a Bill Belichick, and then you look at like obviously Tomlin's a little different in how he does it, but that dude teaches character to players. Like I was talking to Ryan Shazier and a couple other players that have played on the Steelers for longer periods of time, and just like how that dude coaches everybody specifically because he knows and learned the human. Awesome. And it's just like, but some coaches never like they're awkward to walk by and say hi in the hallway. It's just like the NFL is pretty cool from that aspect. And I'm kind of ranting, but I just think those would be my four teams if I had to name them. But I just think that I love the game. I love the difference of leadership tactics and however people try and solve this problem they call a Super Bowl.
I just had one last question.
I'm around. Shoot your shots, man. I'm around for the night.
Were you in Houston when Hard Knocks was filmed there?
I got there. So that training camp is when they filmed it. I got there week 3 or 4. So
okay.
No.
The reason I wanted to ask was I remember, me and my buddies were watching this, and obviously JJ's up there, and we all know the cameras are out there, and then all of a sudden JJ stays in the middle of the field, and he's doing extra reps in front of, all the cameras, staying late at night. And we're like, all right, is this guy kind of putting on a show? I mean, obviously he works hard, but it's like this guy knows the cameras out there. I just always thought that was funny. JJ's out there just in front of the cameras, putting in extra work. He'd probably do that at his own house if the cameras weren't there, but maybe he's doing it there because the camera's there. And I've always wondered, was he that kind of guy, or was he actually out there just being a psycho?
Actually out there being a psycho. No, like, I mean, the dude, like not one thing. I mean, the dude was elite at a lot of things, but his consistency of like work ethic was always elite. Cause like a lesson I learned from him was basically that like consistency trumps everything. And cause like, I wouldn't say like, I mean, there's a time when he's like still eating peanut butter and jellies before he went to sleep and that kind of thing as like a pro athlete. And like, there's better ways to do that in my opinion. But like, no matter what was his protocol, he did not freaking miss. His consistency, obviously his consistency of effort, but his consistency across the board. But yeah, dude, he was always working late or working early or something. I trained with him a decent amount one off season, and we were running gassers, and that dude and like was keeping up with me. He's a freak in his own sense. But I mean, he always kind of work. He does work at weird hours sometimes. He's always there. And
he was sleeping at the facility, Pete, during that Hard Knocks. He had the hyperbolic chamber. He'd go in the equipment room, and he was shutting it down right at the facility.
Didn't he order like a mattress to the facility for training camp or something? I thought they said that on Hard Knocks.
I figured that was for naps, like because you'll get like 2 hours down for lunch and that kind of thing. I assume that's for that. If he had a hyperbaric chamber at the facility, that's savage. But no, I don't. He wasn't doing hyperbarics or anything when I was around, but he dude he's just because like I know Schmaltz, we've talked about it a little bit before, but like success is boring. Doing everything right, doing this, like that dude did all his stretches. That dude ate every calorie he was supposed to eat, every macro. He watched all his film. He knew what to do. He like, you can make the argument he was a little cavalier, but he played. He like it's like you make it, you take it rules in football where like coaches won't say shit if you make plays, and that dude made a fuck ton of plays. So like, I loved how he played the game. I love how he prepared. I mean, he was the man in Houston. Like the electricity when he was making plays. Dude, he was a lightning rod for the boys. I just think the consistency, like again, that predictability we talked about earlier was like because he's long and explosive and quickness and all these other things. But the one thing that impressed me more than anything with him was like his predictability and his consistency on fucking everything. Because like dude, he broke his back.
He would back it up, man. Like he would back everything up.
Yeah, and like, but he wasn't like a talker. Like he wasn't like on game day. Some days he would chirp and that kind of thing. But like when he got his back surgeries and stuff, like the doctor's like, you can go on a walk. He goes, all right, well, how far? He was like, okay, like he goes, this amount of time. He goes, no, I need a distance. So like, he was walking 7 miles in the morning, 7 miles at night, and just like it was just interesting. Like every detail, he always like crossed every T, dotted every I kind of guy. And he always had my respect from that aspect. He just because a lot of guys, you see why they stick around, and they do all the boring stuff, the stuff that nobody else wants to do. And you wonder why they stick around for 8 years and why they do X, Y, and Z. It's not a mistake, dude. They show up on the regular.
For sure. I love that success is boring. I'm going to use that. It's so true.
Yeah, but it takes toughness to work through all that stuff. It takes toughness to keep like, again, it's like it's all like short-term deferment for long-term gain. And like, if like say, who knows what the margin of error is for you making a play that keeps your job or X, Y, and Z. And it's like, because we always talk about that in like the breathing world is like if you can downreg faster than an opponent in a fight, how like does that get you another fresh like minute and a half for the next round where you get your knockout? And that's the breaking point. So it's just like this concept of chasing edges is definitely, it's not like the biohacks and the sups and all that stuff that I love, but it's the character and behavioral habits that really make fucking champions. Is all this boring, monotonous work that separates it? Because you guys have seen it at the pro level. Sure. Like I use this example all the time. Like you look at my line, I mean, with Cush's lean muscle mass aside, there's not a big difference between every guy in the room. And then particularly like hockey, like obviously there's like, I don't think there's any like whatever James Harrison's playing hockey,
No.
So it's just like, but so you understand that the difference is not the physical output. It's the time involved for the skill set, it's the mental fortitude, it's the decision-making. It's who's the most calm and conserves the most energy. It's all these things, knows when to burst. So it's like, why would you not train your mind? Why would you not train that way or understand the character habits of consistency, persistence, predictability that really, I think, trump all sports? But again, we're just ranting on good qualities.
No, it's good shit. Pete, you're such a nail gun, man. You're a guy that I've always looked up to, someone that I can go to. It's been a few years since we've caught up, but even last week when we caught up for about an hour and a half there, you're just a savage. You fucking make me want to go hit the heavy bag right now, throw some lefts and rights. I'm getting fired up over here. But folks, that was Brian Peters, former NFL player. Amazing story. We could do this all day. Check him out at Breathing for Performance. Pete, plug your pod too, right here for the folks, because I think a lot of people are going to be inspired from this talk. It's been awesome.
For sure.
Plug that in.
Yeah, the podcast is called Chasing Edges. It's at Chasing Edges on social and stuff. You can find it on all the platforms and that kind of thing. And then my social is Brian_Peters10. I'm starting to play the content game, so you'll see more accurate information on what I do and how I do it. Probably not the best explanation today, but it's simple tools and tactics that like in performance now and then long term can be separators. But I appreciate you guys having me on. Obviously, Dynamite Humans, always Electric Factory Schmaltzy. So appreciate you.
No, man. As a longtime, I guess, longtime listener of you, it's good to have you on. You're a friend of the show. We want to get you back on because we could do this all day. So, folks, again, that was former NFL linebacker, captain of the Houston Texans, Brian Peters. Fella, thanks again, baby.
Boom.
Thank you, BP.
Easy.
That was unreal, BP. You were buzzing.